Hello, and welcome to DBN's presentation of Nexus's first virtual face-to-face game. Today is June 27th, 2020, and I am Brandon Fogel. Joining me for this Game Day Live presentation of Nexus's coverage is Ed Sullivan and Russ Dennis. Welcome to the live stream, Ed and Russ.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Why don't you guys start out by telling us a little bit, giving our viewers a little bit of background about yourselves. And Ed, let's start with you.
Sure. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm a lawyer, primarily online player. Used to play 20 years ago or so back on, Usenet. Stopped because they didn't even have GIFs in those days. I had to turn the email turns by hand to see what happened. Got back into the hobby a couple of years ago and have played predominantly online and participated in both DixieCon and Boston Massacre this year. Did okay. I don't have Umble's pedigree.
And what's your connection with Nexus?
I joined and played in the Season 2 online championship, made it to the final board, got to know a lot of people through the tournament at that point. And then Russ, or Umble, and I started a podcast after Season 3 or during the Season 3 finals to where we looked at the moves and, we've sort of developed a little bit of a following on Nexus there.
And real quick, Go Horns Go is exactly what you'd expect. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. I'm a Longhorn, proud to be a Longhorn, got the Longhorn tie. And it's, as Russ pointed out, it's a pretty boring moniker, but that's okay. Maybe I'll make up for it other ways.
Well, it could have been worse. It could have been Hook'em Horns. So at least.
Oh, wow. That's true. If you're not a Longhorn fan.
Was it between those two? Did you think about it?
No, not even. I picked this name out a long time ago, and that's what, I'm stuck with it.
I've played Diplomacy with Longhorns fans before, and they like to use the Hook'em Horns thing as like a secret signal. They're like, if I give you the Hook'em Horns thing, that means I'm going through with our plan.
Well, one thing about Longhorns is we're not Aggies, right? So if you went to Texas A&M, you're regimented, you're going to fall in line. We're more individualistic at UT, so that might I don't think it's going to help you much.
Well done getting the dig in. Congratulations. That was smooth. All right, Russ, Umble the Heap. Let's hear about your Diplomacy life.
Sure. So I started playing in 2008. I had been playing Risk, and so I just kind of searched about other games like Risk, and I came across Diplomacy. And as I looked into it, I said, this is the game that has everything that I would enjoy. You had persuasion, you had strategy. And so at that point, what I saw to be the place to play online was actually the DP Judge. And you had to learn basically kind of like your coding that you had to send into a server to be able to play. And so it took a long time for me to figure out how to do that. But that's where I began playing in 2008 and eventually did a little bit on Play Diplomacy. And then I got focused on trying to put together a face-to-face group there in Iowa, where I lived at the time, and played a tournament in Chicago. Then took a break for about 4 or 5 years. Guy was trying to get some stuff going on here in Michigan. And so I did an online game, found out about the Nexus, was able to play in the first 2 finals, did some tournaments over the last year at Tempest, and then also the 2 virtual tournaments. So I've done stuff online, done stuff face-to-face. I like Diplomacy regardless of the format. It is definitely my favorite game. And
tell us about the briefing.
Yeah, so about 4 or 5 months ago, I started the Diplomacy briefing, and it has a little over 600 subscribers and followers. It goes out every single week on a Friday. You can sign up for free. It tells everything that's going on in the hobby from the previous week. It gives a calendar for what's coming up. And so it's just kind of a way to keep everybody in the know of what's going on across the Diplomacy community. So regardless of the site, regardless of the format, if you get the briefing, you'll know what's going on.
If you're interested in the hobby, you should go to the briefing. It's really great.
It's been a fantastic service for the hobby already. And it's only been around for like 6 months now. Is that right?
Yeah. The end of September. So we just put out this last Friday, the 40th issue. So really probably about 3 months away then from getting through for a whole year.
Got it. It feels like time might have stopped in March or something. So like anything that happened before then is, still 6 months ago.
But the briefing didn't stop. The COVID did not stop the briefing. It continued on. And each issue's been coming out every Friday.
Not even COVID can knock the briefing out.
That's right.
Indeed. The briefing will survive us all, hopefully.
Like a cockroach.
Indeed. Russ, can you tell us more about Nexus?
Sure.
I think most of our viewers from the face-to-face world will not have heard of Nexus before and don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so more and more people in diplomacy have realized how Discord had really become a place where a lot of the online community was organizing. And Nexus was actually the first Discord server for diplomacy. And originally it was very tied to the Conspiracy platform, Android app. But as time went on, the mission that Nexus had, it broadened, and it became more of a place where all people from the online platforms could come and do a central tournament. So it just finished its 4th season. It has over 1,000 members as part of the server. The last season, I think, had a little over 120 people in their press tournament, and then they have a finals at the end of that each season. They're getting ready right now to go into a gunboat tournament. It starts up, in fact, on Monday. So if you want to be a part of that, sign up. It's already over 90 players. And it's just really become a place that people can come together and play the game that we love.
And so today is their first foray into face-to-face play. And what face-to-face used to mean was you're in the same room with people and you're playing on a very short clock, 15 to 20 minutes. You play a game over the course of a few hours and it's over that same day. So for most online players, that's a sort of new and different way of doing things. They're used to 24-hour deadlines or even longer. And so games can take several weeks or even several months. So this is a new way for the Nexus player, for some of the Nexus players. Some of them have also, like yourselves, have played in the virtual face-to-face games that have been arranged since the lockdown period started. Is this something that you think Nexus players are going to be excited about or nervous about? What sort of reaction would you expect from the sort of run-in-the-mill every day?
Well, for me personally, when I played virtually, I loved it. I mean, I thought the format fit my style. I'm able to, try and bond instantly with people. And I'm like, why haven't I played face-to-face before? It's travel, it's commitments. And I really enjoyed it. But I think that some players will find it challenging, right? Because they're used to thinking about their moves for an extended period of time, extended negotiations, overwriting, sandboxing out, which is a device on the Backstabber format where you can go through and essentially put in all the expected moves or all the unexpected moves and see how they turn out to try and come up with a series of, optimal moves for your play. That's all gone. They don't have time to do that. So I think the better that a player can adapt to not being perfect or at least perfect in their mind and playing with, their instincts a little bit more, the better they'll do.
Yeah, well, the draw of face-to-face has always been that you have that rush, right? When everything starts and everybody's talking with each other and you really don't know the moves what people are going to have wrote down. And with face-to-face or this virtual format, you're really pulling upon who you are as a diplomacy player, all the experience you've gained, who you are. So it's not just like you're planning something out, you're having to be efficient with your time. And so because of that, it's a very challenging format, but I think that's something that will attract people that play there at the Nexus. And to me, it is a more challenging, but it's also a more exhilarating way to play diplomacy. And so I love the online game. I think you can grow a lot as a player and learning how to play. But, when you get into virtual or the face-to-face diplomacy, you're really, to me, getting down to what the game is all about. And you're being able to take all of your knowledge, all of your ability about alliance structures, and then try to sell that to a person.
That's interesting. What the game is really about. So it seems to me what you have in mind there is that like the game is really about negotiation. It's not about making the perfect moves. It's about making the connections with people and figuring out how to maneuver through all of that social interaction to attain your goal. Did I read you correctly on that?
Yeah, somewhat, and I love, playing online. It's not that it's somehow a lesser form, but face-to-face is a more challenging form because of the limited amount of time and how wise you have to be to use your the knowledge and the ability that you have, and also persuasion. And obviously there's a difference between trying to persuade with your words, and I should say by writing, and then persuading through actually talking and trying to get a read of a person with their inflections, with how they respond, who they're talking to. There's just a lot more to process, in 15 minutes than you can try to pull off, if you have 24 hours or 3 days. And so I definitely think, and I encourage everybody on the Nexus, that you should give this a try. And even if you struggle a little bit with conversational English, because we do have a lot of international players, you can still negotiate through the Discord chat. You can still go and be a part of everything. It's not a problem. So I definitely encourage each person to give it a try. And I think when you do, you're going to really enjoy it. It's another way to play diplomacy that's worth exploring.
Yeah, I agree. It's another way to play diplomacy, right? But to me, it's just a different format. Postal diplomacy, of course, saved the board game in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But I really think this virtual play is going to springboard enthusiasm for the hobby. And the technology that we have now to play it this way, to where people aren't forced to spend a lot of money on travel, or aren't going to be, intimidated by perhaps a group of players who continues to sort of, go to all these tournaments. And this is easy for folks, and they can maybe gain some confidence that their game, can make it in an environment like this. And I frankly, like I said, I really enjoyed it, but I really enjoy the online form as well, because I like the negotiation part of it. And, when you negotiate over a day, especially in an intensive game, generally, right, the plans are really well thought out after 24 hours. You don't have that. You just got a few conversations and go in virtual.
Well, I played with Gohorn, so I can't testify to his plans being really thought out, but he definitely uses a lot of words.
Well, who finished higher?
Yeah. Well, it matters if you're talking about regular season or the game itself.
I will say this, that one of the things you have to accept when you start playing these much shorter time limit games is that the quality of the moves themselves will be lower. You will have mistakes. You will have in the heat of the moment type decisions. And so if you're just looking at just from a purely technical perspective, the quality of the moves will be lower, but the excitement will be higher. So we hope higher excitement density is
and part of that too, though, because there's also that aspect of mistakes being, the more likelihood of making a big mistake, or someone missing a stab that's coming because the format's going faster. That also, in a sense, can bring out some really big moves that perhaps you don't see in online, just because people can analyze it, or somebody can warn another person about it before it comes.
Yeah, and you can overthink it, and then there's lots of second guessing and recriminations, which are really fun for post game. So real quick before we turn to the games, Russ, tell us about Humble the Heap. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it is basically based on the villain from David Copperfield, who was called Uriah the Heap. And Uriah is kind of this guy that is in the background, but he schemes throughout the entire book. And he's kind of like this repulsive creature that's got like pale skin. And his big saying is, I always try to be humble, is how Charles Dickens would put that together. And by the time you get to the end of the story, you find out he's like mastermind this whole rising up from this obscurity to taking over this law firm. And he eventually gets exposed, but he kind of has a little bit of that diplomacy type in him. And so I kind of just put a few parts of his character together. And so Humble the Heap came from that character.
And Ed, did Russ just describe his board persona?
He certainly described his physical appearance.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say on the last point was this: online players, right? If you get stabbed, or you have to process that. A lot of them process it over hours. Here in virtual tournament, you got to move on when bad things happen really quickly, and that's going to be a difficulty for some of them.
Yeah, and managing your emotions is one of the most important things aspects of face-to-face play. It's underrated, and it's losing control of your emotions is a pitfall that that hits a lot of people. But we often the tasks of the game are often divided into 3 categories, loosely called tactics, strategy, and negotiation. Eddie Brisson, I think, is the one who coined this or articulated this first. And I would actually put as a 4th one up there, personal management and emotional management is an important part of that. So, and yeah, in the face-to-face game, man, that is hard. There's an extra challenge. You're dealing with people in your face, and you have to deal with them as human beings, not just as destinations for a send button. Let's turn to some diplomacy. What do you guys say?
Let's do it.
All right. Here we have 2 games going today, and they are called Toyota Nexus and Nexus Generation. And they are currently in winter of 04 for Toyota Nexus and fall of 04 for Nexus Generation. These games don't have an explicit time limit, but they do have the possibility of ending in 1907. The default will be that they end after 1907 and can continue by unanimous consent, which is different from the typical thing for face-to-face games, which is that they either have a time limit or they can end by unanimous consent, but that the default would be to continue. So first of all, Toyota Nexus, the lineup is this, and we only know something about some of these players. We should say some of them are familiar to me from a few of them are familiar to me from the face-to-face hobby, but the rest of them are from the Nexus group, and some of them are also unknown to you guys. So some of these are not the most prominent Nexus players, but just Nexus players who decided to jump in. In Austria, we have Ari. In England, we have Doc Binder, who is a well-known player from the face-to-face community and a former world champion. France, we have, oh God, how any thoughts?
Bjorn Borg.
What's that? Bjorn Borg?
Bjorn Borg. He's giving up tennis. He's playing diplomacy.
Legendary tennis champion Bjorn Borg in France. In Germany, we have Revolution. In Italy, we have Saren. In Russia, we have Richard. And in Turkey, we have Garmand. Do you guys know anything about any of these Nexus players?
I played Garmand in game 1 of the Boston Massacre. He played England. I played Germany. He's a new player to the virtual scene. I don't think he has a lot of online diplomacy experience either, but I found him to be an incredibly nice and engaging human being. I think he'll do well socially, and I think he will build his diplomacy experience. So we'll see how he does in this game.
Yeah, I played him in board 2 of Boston Massacre. So I'd had him in the first board. I had him on the second board. And in fact, I talked with him afterwards on Skype for probably about an hour just discussing the game because I was trying to wrap my mind around the decisions that he made. And he is a very, very nice person. And I couldn't have had a nicer person ruin my game. So,
yeah.
So I think he's excited. He said, yeah, I've learned a lot of things, and excited to see how he does in this game.
I wanted to understand why he made some of the decisions he made. That's great. That's a really nice way of saying, why did you do that to me? So, all right. Well, the way we typically like to do this is we take turns breaking down the phases. And Ed, you are first up on my screen, so I'm going to turn to you. What of interest do you see in the spring 1901 moves?
Well, the only question I guess 2 questions are, one, the force support into Burgundy, which we saw was, rarely done. I know Umble is a big fan of moving to Burgundy. One doesn't know if that's arranged as part of subterfuge or not, but that's obviously a bit of a concern to look at. And then looking at Fleet Trieste moving to Albania, obviously it looks like Russia will either Austria wants to be a player in Greece or wants Greece and wants to build too. So we'll be interested to see what happens. I mean, other than that, I mean, the moves look, fairly standard. There's a bounce in Galicia, which is not unexpected, and everything else to me looks pretty standard fare.
So talk a bit about the hold in Venice. What can you read in from that?
Only that, Austria and Italy obviously are in online play, and Russ and I have discussed this, or Umbo and I have discussed this many times, which is online players, Austria, Italy play differently typically than face-to-face players. Russ, why don't you talk about what you've observed in both, since you've played more face-to-face games?
Yeah, I've found that in online play, Italy tends to be a lot more likely to attack Austria. And there seems to be a general consensus in face-to-face that if for Italy to attack in 1901 is very poor play for him, and that it's far better to go a little slower. And whereas online, the idea seems to be that, I think part of it is because there's more solos online. And so let's just get Italy moving. And so I feel much more better as Austria leaving Trieste open if I'm playing face-to-face than if I'm playing online.
It's a really interesting cultural difference. It's definitely the case in face-to-face play that in Italy, who attacks Austria out of the gate should expect that Austria will simply suicide against him or her.
The Burgundy is an interesting part too, because in the two of the games that Gohorns and I that we looked at there in Massacre, on my board, the support into Burgundy was done to waste the Germans' move right from the get-go. He said, let's bounce in Burgundy, instead support it in. Whereas in Gohorn's game, it was done to throw off the board.
Conrad played Germany, I played France, and it was a decision. Conrad, I said I was moving to Burgundy, and he said, let's create deception with the rest of the board. And I said, fine.
Yeah, I like the support in. But probably for me, I feel greater about supporting in an online play than, again, in face-to-face. Because there's just a lot more attacking out of the gate, I find, in online play. And so being able to stake down Burgundy and then be able to use that to influence Belgium, I found to be very helpful. But it'll be interesting to find out the relationship Germany and France have here, if this was just trying to throw things off, or this was France just saying, hey, I'm going to do what I want and kind of limit you.
Yeah, the big question, right, is whether there was any agreement here at all, right? If did they agree to a bounce, and then Germany is surprised to see the support, so that there's now an army in Burgundy hamstringing what he can do with Munich, and then or was there no agreement at all? And there's just it's interesting in the case of no agreement, right? Because if Germany doesn't know what France is going to do, it kind of seems like there's not a whole lot of advantage to going to Burgundy. I generally, as Germany, don't want to go to Burgundy unless I think I'm going to get in, or if it's part of an arranged bounce.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is to try. I think it's a bad idea to try to trick people with your moves in spring 1901, because you're just lowering your ability to have alliances and build trust. So hopefully that's not what France is doing here, because there's no reason to burn bridges. There's no reason to burn bridges at all in diplomacy, but definitely not in spring 1901.
If only everybody thought that way. I definitely have smelt a lot of smoke from bridges in my diplomacy lifetime. Sure. All right, let us. Why don't we move ahead here to fall of 1901? And Russ, I'll turn to you. What do you see here?
Okay, so it was about limiting Germany then, because they didn't want there to be any kind of support to Holland. And so England has bounced Germany and Holland, and France has been able to walk into Belgium. So it seems to me like that's an England and French cooperation. And then you also have the bounce in Sweden on top of that, which seems like that was probably done by England. So it kind of seems like Germany has kind of been on the out. It looks like he's the odd player out here.
In the West.
Yeah, in the West. And there's another problem too, because Germany should have probably let Russia into Sweden, I would think, because if what went on there, now it looks a lot more like going to Burgundy was a wasting of Germany's moves. And if that is true, Germany definitely should have let Russia into Sweden because he was going to need a friend. But Russia's going to Silesia too. So I don't.
It's an interesting move going to Silesia here, isn't it?
Yeah.
What
And
you feel like
Austria going to Galicia.
Yeah, I mean, with Galicia needing to be covered, Russia goes to Silesia. Sometimes you see this with players who, maybe Germany tells Russia that not going to let him or her into Sweden, and Russia just gets mad and says, well, then I'm going to Silesia. I'm going to throw some units at you, even if it, doesn't actually benefit them enough, and gives up the position in Galicia. Ed, do you see anything here that you want to comment on?
I thought the hold in Bulgaria, I mean, Turkey's a nice guy, and this is not shocking to me that he didn't want to pick between Austria or Russia. Not that he could have stopped a move to Greece, but it looks like a Lepanto setting up. Could have gained some support with Russia. Instead, he just holds, and I'm a little concerned for Turkey's long-term health in this game right now.
Well, let me add to that too. Like, if you're just going to hold, I mean, I think you should at the very least, just support Albania to Greece. I know it doesn't matter, but you can easily tell Russia, look, I'm just doing something to do something. He was going to get it anyway. But in the situation Turkey's in, I don't know if holding, I a lot of times feel like if everybody's making these moves and you're not even at least trying to build some kind of goodwill, you might be the odd man out.
Well, I mean, then there's no reason for support of Bulgaria. I mean, if you're just going to hold, right? I mean, Bulgaria can't be dislodged, at least in this turn.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you both have this worry that if Turkey doesn't pick a side early on, then they're just going to be running in place. Like they need to pick a direction.
I mean, the move to Galicia, right, could potentially help Turkey get Russia on board if that's what Turkey needs.
Sure. I'm just saying, I think there's better things to do with the units that actually can still keep all your doors open. I don't think Russia would be mad with, Bulgaria supporting Albania to Greece because it doesn't do anything, but you are a little bit, it means something, right? It doesn't mean nothing. Yeah. And when you just hold, it's almost like, to me, it's like you're unsure, and sometimes that can bring the wolves out.
It is worth noting that Turkey did not go to Romania, which Turkey easily could have done, right? Like this would have been the most anti-Russian, or at least, I've seen Turkeys go to Russia and say, look, I really think I should be in the Black Sea. It's best for both of us. So I'm going to move to Romania in order to force you to let me into the Black Sea. If that's what happened and Russia said, well, screw you, do it and I'll fight you for the rest of the game. That could have been it. But either way, yeah, Turkey is playing it safe for now. So that's clear. The situation in the West is really interesting to me because if England has clearly chosen to hold Germany back. England clearly prefers the French as an ally to the point that they're comfortable allowing France to get 3 builds in 1901, which is really, it puts France in a very powerful position. Some would say too powerful, makes them an early target, which may also be England's strategy. It depends on how sort of devious they are about it. It'd be really interesting to see if France uses all of those builds. I see good players pass up builds frequently as France. I've seen players pass up builds even when they only get 2, pass up 1 and just put down an army or something like that.
I think holding that fleet and not building Fleet Marseille would be wise because at the end of the day, too, you can't really use it most effectively till 1903 anyway, as you're getting all your units set into position. And I think it'd be wise to just tell them, look, I'm going to hold that fleet. And then you're going to find out, then exactly who you're going to be attacking and who you're going to be moving on, whether England or Italy, in 1903, getting everything in position. I think what you're saying is very wise there.
All right, let's turn and see how that worked out. Real quick before we do that, though, just one little thing to point out here. Serbia actually supported Albania to hold, Presumably, this is a misorder.
Hey, oh yeah, I'd agree.
Wow.
Potentially
Okay.
very significant one, right? If Turkey had decided to, just take a flyer on Greece, that would have bounced Greece, Albania out of Greece. All right, here are the builds. I'll call these out for us. France decides to go for all three and puts down 2 armies.
Yeah, I don't think Germany will like that.
I don't think Germany will like that. We'll see how comfortable England is with Fleet Brest. England was obviously at least a little bit worried about it since they put Fleet London, whereas Fleet Eddie would have been the most French-friendly build here. Germany, for their part, puts down a fleet. This is really interesting, especially with the army in Silesia. What's interesting about this is that it limits Germany's options here, and it basically telegraphs that they are going to go to Baltic. So this is an extremely anti-Russian move here, and it says to Russia that I care much more about harming you than about holding back my friends, my quote-unquote friends in the West. In the East, we have pretty straightforward builds. Russia had the only real decision here, and that wasn't that much of a decision. Army Moscow is pretty straightforward. I expect Silesia will be going back to Warsaw here. Otherwise, the 2 fleets in the south make a lot of sense. Okay, let's stay with this for another year. We'll spend 2 years with Nexus, with Toyota Nexus, and then we'll go over to Nexus Generation for a couple of years. And Ed, you're back on the clock for spring 1902.
Okay, instant analysis. Looks like the Lepanto obviously is coming. Turkey and Russia, I think, have obviously some degree of cooperation there, with Bulgaria supporting Romania, thwarting Austria's attempt to get there, and Turkey trying to free up the fleet from Ankara to Constantinople. So they're in defense mode there. In the East, it does look like RT versus AI. And then, contrary to what you just thought, Brandon, it looks like Germany has shifted west and allowed Russia to concentrate on Austria, let Russia into Sweden, and England bounces again, but moves to Skagerrak, presumably to try and set up an attack there. And France continues to put armies into Burgundy on the Siegfried line, and we'll see what happens in the fall. That's my that's my down and dirty.
This is a really interesting turn for a number of reasons. Let's start. Let's for a little deeper analysis here. Let's go start in the West here. So I gave an analysis about this fleet, which indicated that it was intended to be used against Sweden and Russia rather than heading to the West. How do you guys feel about Germany's decision making here? Russ, let's go to you.
Yeah, these definitely are suboptimal moves on a lot of reasons. Denmark to North Sea wasn't going to do anything. I don't know what ultimately that was hoping to happen. Kiel to Holland wasn't going to do anything. To me, if you're going to be setting up a strong defense, you should have supported Kiel to Ruhr and gone ahead and then moved Berlin over, because all of that stuff to me was not going to help you with the defense. Denmark to Skagerrak, in my opinion, is what you should have gone for, because it seemed like the next step. If this continues, Germany's not going to be long for this world.
Yeah, it's worth going into a little bit more detail here, not to criticize Germany, but to bring up the concept of unit efficiency. So this is something that we like to talk about a lot on our regular live streams. And for me, it's one of the most important concepts of the game. You have a certain amount of resources, and utilizing those resources as efficiently as possible to conserve your current resources and to gain more is critical from the tactical perspective. So in this way, diplomacy is like a resource gathering game. How efficiently you do so, you gather them and manage them, has a big say in how much resource you end up having at the end of the game. And in this case, this is just a very clear underutilization of resources. Creates this unit here. If he's going to use it for defense, got to get it into position to be useful. Because it's a fleet, it can't do anything with Munich. So it's automatically limited that way. The only way to guarantee to get this into a position to be used is to do exactly what you said, which is to pull Kiel into Ruhr and to bring Berlin over into Kiel. I agree. This is, the Denmark to north. Maybe he was hoping. It's not clear what exactly this could have accomplished, right? So
Right.
Might as well just go to Skagerrak, because either North is either going to convoy this army over or support Norway into Skagerrak. Either way, Denmark to north isn't going to do anything. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, and the same thing there too. Like Russia and Turkey have to me, they need to get on even more onto the same page, because they're going to need to work really, really closely, because Austria and Italy already have a great position. And if this continues, they're going to be losing probably either Bulgaria or Romania. Probably not both, but they're going to be losing some stuff this next turn. So they need to really put up a defense. So
you don't like what Turkey did here?
No, I think what Turkey did, I think what they did is the right thing. I personally think they probably, Russia though was more what I was looking at, that you needed to move down into your Ukraine and pull back Silesia to Warsaw, kind of like what you said. You need to plug that up, support Romania more in a stronger sense. And I think Turkey did what he had to do, but they're gonna very quickly are going to need probably some help.
What is the Silesian army doing? I mean, what purpose is it there for? Like, why was it moved there?
Well, he may be opportunistic. I don't know.
I mean, it can only be understood as an anti-German move. Perhaps he was expecting Austria to send Vienna to Bohemia. Maybe that, there was part of an AR that was supposed to develop that didn't.
Were you guys a little surprised that Portugal moves to mid-Atlantic as opposed to like Spain, South Coast, or, to put a little pressure on Italy to maybe step back, or no?
I personally wouldn't. If I were France, I wouldn't get involved in the Mediterranean, especially given that and seeing these moves now, I would feel justified in that, because the AI is not working as efficiently as it could.
Right.
So I wouldn't be so worried. I'd be a little bit worried about RT's defense for the reasons that we've talked about. I think Ankara should be going to black here, and Khan should be staying where it is, because Turkey needs to worry about Bulgaria at this point. But they're setting, but the AI, supporting the fleet into Aegean is the slow way to go about doing this. So, Try could have gone down to Albania, Greece could have gone to Aegean, Ionian could have gone to East. So the thing that France's move to mid-Atlantic is most curious about is that it suggests that there is some tension in the English-French alliance. I assume the Bounced English Channel was arranged, but England now has two French fleets sitting on their back door.
Yeah.
So Russ, that's my take. What do you think?
It's a strong position, and he's got options. Well, the only thing is with building those two armies, his ability to swing down onto Italy is not going to be as strong. Yep. So, I mean, now people obviously there's mistakes that happen, but if I was England and I was looking at this, I'd say, you know what, he has a great position on when he wants to attack me. So I don't know if he's thinking that far ahead or not, but it doesn't look like Italy is a priority or will become one. So France has a really strong position to take, I would say, if he's moving to take over the West, not so much to move into the Med right now, at least. That not doing that second fleet is kind of almost pushing him in that other direction.
If I was England, I would be upset that there wasn't a fleet Marseille built.
Just to commit, rather than Brest, right? Like, you wouldn't want to see both, would you?
Correct. I would not want to see both. I think maybe I could understand Brest a little bit if I was England, but I would have wanted to see a fleet in Marseille or a deferred build.
Yeah, the deferred build is what I personally would want to see. But.
Yeah, I think the deferred build is what you would want anyway, just to give you flexibility on what you want. I know when I'm as France, I always say to both Italy and England, if I have those 3 builds, I always tell them, look, I'm not wanting to get you guys spooked, and I'm going to be saving that to attack, the other person who I'm telling. And I think that's wise, just because you can't really use it. You can't attack both. And so being able to concentrate that and build in spring 03, whether in Brest or Marseille, I think is more helpful. Those having 4 armies, I'm just really interested to see how they use that efficiently. You were talking about that, Brandon. How do you use those 4 armies efficiently? Because I doubt England's going to say, hey, go ahead and take over Kiel and Berlin also. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. And these are places where the English-French alliance can suffer some buckling. I should say that there is no scoring system in play for this game, so it won't be clear what the secondary goals are should one of these players decide that they can't solo. Right? Without a scoring system, it's unclear what you should be going for next. Usually, there's sort of default that having a board top is nice, but the scoring system is what makes that explicit. So in this case, we'll see. We'll see how the players play. Yep.
I was going to say, looking at these moves and just thinking about it a little bit more, France obviously must have told Germany that he would support him into Holland, right? And to get the fleet to Kiel, that is the only, in my mind, explanation for why that turned out the way it is.
I see. And Germany fell for it. That would be the presumption in that case.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see how things continue to develop. This is fall 1902, and Russ, we're going to go to you first.
Hey. So France and Turkey don't lose anything. Interesting. So did Aegean hold? It didn't do anything?
Aegean held.
Wow.
It wouldn't have been able to, I mean, the support into Bulgaria would have been cut, but Serbia...
They could have got Bulgaria. He could have hit Constantinople. They hit Romania, and then Greece supports Serbia in.
Yeah. Serbia could have gone. Aegean couldn't have helped, though. So the problem isn't that Aegean didn't do anything; it's that Serbia didn't do anything.
Yeah, but what's the point of Aegean holding?
Because it. I mean, the reason for it not to move is otherwise it could get displaced and blown up. I presume that's the thing. But yeah, no, the typical moves in this case would have been Aegean, taps Khan, and actually no. Actually, what they did is typically what would have happened in this case. It's just that Serbia would support Galicia to Romania. This is simply a tactical error. There was nothing else for Serbia to do here, and that should have guaranteed that Romania was taken.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, let's give Russia a little bit of credit here. This would be a reason to have Ukraine open here, because it provides, if they assume that Romania is going to be displaced, it provides a place for Romania to retreat to, rather than being displaced. Sorry, I interrupted your analysis, Russ. Let me go back to you here.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so to me, there was a guarantee to make sure one of them went down a unit, and they didn't, I guess, figure it out. So that's kind of a little bit of a setback there for AI. Russia's going to be getting a build, so great for him. He's still in Silesia. It looks like Austria retreated to Vienna, so that's not going to become, kind of a thorn behind the line or anything there that he has.
Yeah,
France.
Suddenly Russia's position is quite nice, isn't it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, now being in Silesia is wonderful.
Yep. Of course, the danger there is with England and France, their cooperation. England moves on into Russia. So if that continues, and France seems to be committing himself to moving 2 fleets south, he's not getting a build, and Italy is not getting a build. So Italy's going to have to pull back to do some kind of defense. I think that's a real win for Turkey, especially. So I don't know how much diplomacy he was doing, but Italy's pretty much got to pull back, and that becomes much more precarious for Austria. So that's really, really great for Turkey. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not really convinced that this is the best move for France, but maybe it'll work out. What'd you say?
It is if you're England.
Yeah.
What, Russ, what is the other option that you would imagine France doing?
I think being patient. Nothing's going to be resolved in the East. I think it's good here to just be a little bit of be patient, get Munich, and then get an opening. Let England extend some, just see what's there. But I feel like committing to Italy right away, especially if England makes gains really quickly, which can happen in an EF alliance. If you start pushing everything into Italy, you become a target. And I think it's better to kind of wait a little bit back, see what's happening. And if there's really an opening, sure, go for Italy. But you need to make sure that you get your part of the pie in Germany. And immediately throwing units towards Italy, I think, starts to ensure that you're not going to get as much as you should get.
So the moves that concern you specifically are the movements of the fleets into here. Presumably the movement to Piedmont doesn't worry you because this is a nice entree into Tyrolia.
Oh, Marseille should have supported Paris, right?
To Burgundy. Taking Burgundy and Ruhr, you're set up for Munich at that point.
So in your opinion, don't go to Piedmont here because you have something else to do with this unit, and it risks pissing Italy off.
Well, and also my thing, I have a general dislike as France slogging it out with Italy early on. I have a general dislike attacking Italy in a lot of ways. I feel it's just so easy to stall your game out as France that you need to have a really good opening so that you can make some quick gains there. So that's probably a little bit of my bias when it comes to it, but I really don't think that launching everything, I think you're going to be creating a greater opening for Turkey. Right now you've got, it seems like, some pretty good balance there in the East. So focus on resolving your side first. I feel tactically that's the way to go, but maybe this will pay off for him. It's a good idea if it works, right? So even if tactically perhaps it's not the best, or strategically if it works, then it's good. But yeah, I don't think that you're going to see the payoff, but you might, but if I'm Italy, I'm whipping everything back. So
it's a great season for England. They take Denmark, they catch up to France on builds, they get France committed towards Italy. So from that perspective, it really was England's year, 1902, at least in my opinion. And I think Turkey's going to be happy with this too. I mean, just like Russ said, now Italy, is going to have their attention diverted.
Let me ask you this question, Brandon. Do you think Russia in this moment should have helped Germany and maybe just taken Norway?
Supported Denmark to hold, especially given that this unit had nothing else to do. With the caveat that we don't know what the negotiations are like. It's possible that Russia and Germany are not getting along very well in negotiations, which would be a failure, I think, on Russia's part. I would view that as a failure if I were Russia, to not get Germany on my side. Because I think you guys have pointed this out, the EF is looking like a monster right now. And they are working in sync, and they have got gorgeous pace. The tempo that they have picked up right now is extraordinary in this term. England ends this term in Skagerrak, Denmark, and North, with the army already on the continent in Holland. France ends this turn in Ruhr, Piedmont, and Western Mediterranean. So the two of them together will roll the board if they continue to work in concert with each other. And if I'm Russia, I would be terrified of this. So
I think, if you take Norway, Germany can retreat to Sweden. He stays the same, right? You get a build. You can build St. Petersburg Fleet North Coast, and you're beginning. If you got a solid thing with Germany, I think that's a great position for Russia to be. England doesn't get their build, and maybe there's something. I'm just saying, I think that would be much more interesting than allowing England to continue to grow.
Yep.
I'm curious what you guys think England will build.
Or maybe Russia, because Russia's getting a build.
Well, no, both actually.
Well, Russia has to build in St. Petersburg, and
Right.
it should be a fleet north coast.
Right.
The
England needs an army, in my opinion.
So
you should put an army on the continent. That's how at least I think.
Ed, what do you think?
I definitely agree. One army. I'm wondering. I don't think I'd build two in this situation. I'd probably build a fleet London, army Edinburgh.
Yeah. Maybe.
Russ, what's your logic on building at least one army?
Well, if you're going to compete, you've got to get armies and keep pushing them up, especially if you ever foresee the alliance falling apart. You want to have some armies there to be able to make your move, because you definitely can't solo. It's even, I would say, very difficult to often top the board without getting yourself a solid presence. So whether you're convoying up to eventually take St. Petersburg and hit Russia from the north, or just working across Germany, I think that's what you need. If I'm France, I don't think I want to see 4 fleets. So I would think, doing 2 armies, maybe you convoy something up to Norway because you got Skagerrak. Maybe you do that, put another one in London. You could probably do a fleet Edinburgh and maybe park it more Norwegian, but I don't know. I definitely you should be doing one army, and maybe you do a fleet in Edinburgh and army London. I don't think you want to put a fleet in London, though.
I can tell you most top face-to-face players would put down 2 armies here. Your fleets are already in. You've already got fleets in good positions. Another fleet's not going. You don't need another fleet to gain better advantage in the north, and you can use armies right away. And honestly, they're also usually thinking about 18 at this point.
Right.
And as England, you don't get 18 with a lot of fleets.
Plus, well, go Horns! I blame you then for suggesting it, because I was on track until you suggested.
I'm blaming Brandon here. I wanted to say 2 armies, and he got me where he did what does Germany disband? Fleet Baltic, or did Denmark retreat to Helgo and Bite? I can't tell on the map.
It retreated to Helgo and Bite, yeah.
I'd assume disbanded Baltic.
If you're Germany, you are in deep doo-doo right here.
Yeah.
For me, it would depend entirely on the diplomatic situation. If I have any chance with any of these 3 that are around me, I pick one and I disband to their benefit.
Right.
So
yeah, you got to get England and France fighting each other.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. And so, however you can make one envious of the other, that's your card to play. And probably. Man, you probably want to make England a little bit stronger, right? To put Russia and France, make them worried about England. Maybe that's the play.
That's interesting. France is already ahead, so it might be easier to give them, to make them look scarier to the whole board. But I like the idea of trying to force Russia on your side by turning England into the scary monster. Well, let's do this. Let us go to the Winter 02 builds, and then we're going to turn to the other game. We do in England have Fleet Eddie and Army London. I do think if you're going to build a fleet here, it's got to be in Eddie. Any other place is going to scare France.
Right.
And England is in such a good position here. They just don't need. Russ, I really like your analysis here that it's going to be easy for France to get stymied in the Western Med and possibly overextended. And that opens the door for England. So patient game here by England is good. Germany disbands Baltic. So they're just going to try to hold their line as best they can.
It was like 1945 for them.
Russia does the right. An early 1945, we should say.
Yes.
Russia does the right thing and builds Fleet North Coast. Okay, let us turn to board number 2. This is Nexus Generation. In Austria, we have Superstition. In England, we have Jacob. I actually do have a little bit of info on Jacob. He responded to the call for bio information. He is A new player just started playing a couple months ago. He lives in New York City. He calls himself a new COVID player, I should say. Probably there's probably a whole baby bump of players, baby boom, I should say, of players who have come in since the lockdown period started. He's a recent college grad and is from New York City, as well as currently lives there. In France, we have Klaes de Graaf, who is a Dutch player who is well known both on WebDip, which is an online community, and in the face-to-face community. I played with him at the World Diplomacy Championships in Marseille last September. He also was one of the tournament directors of the European DipCon Championship last November. So he's a well-respected player in several communities. In Germany, we have Go Pats. In Italy, we have Jason Massbaum, who is a longtime face-to-face player. Russia is Master Plum. And in Turkey, we have Stephen Hogue, who is a Nexus, who's a well-known Nexus player, as far as I know, and has played in both of the face-to-face, virtual face-to-face tournaments that we have run. And he has been on one of the live streams as an interview and also won Player's Choice at Boston Massacre last weekend. So he is not only becoming well-known, but also well-known as a really nice guy. So do you guys have any intel on the players I did not have anything to say about?
Sure. Austria Superstition, Umble and I both know pretty well. He's a moderator on the Nexus server. He's well known to be a social player, relies on building relationships, although it doesn't look like he's done a good job of that from the board. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to that. He's been interviewed a couple of times by both of us. And then, of course, I know Klaus, he's in addition to WebDip, I mean, he's played in 2 of the seasons of the Nexus Online Championships. And I just played him a couple weeks ago in the Boston Massacre tournament. We were on the same board. In addition to being a really good diplomacy player, he's a hell of a nice guy.
All right. So just on Superstition, nothing on Go Pats or Master Plum?
I've seen him post by Go Pats, but I don't know his diplomacy style.
Right. I played with Steven in my board too. He's the other part of that duo that decided that they were done with the game and so that they were going to close it up and close up shop. So he also said there were many different things he would have done differently. And so I'm looking forward to him. I told him, I said, I'm hearing about the Player's Choice. I want to see that person sometime when I play with you. So that would make it the Player's Choice. So I'm excited to kind of see how he does on this board. Of course, Superstition has been an active part of the Nexus from the very beginning. I encouraged him because the last 2 times he's played in a finals game for Nexus, he's been the first out. So I encouraged him, do not do that for this first virtual game. You need to come through big. So we'll see if what's going on with Austria and Italy in this game.
So I'm sorry, to be clear, did you just say that the Player's Choice, Stephen Hogue, would not have been your choice?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm not saying he was bad. Let's just say that when I said, let's play another year, his response was not a Player's Choice response in the public chat. And I'll leave it at that. So he later came in with, we had a conversation too about that. But yeah, he is a nice guy. And both of those guys had mentioned that there's a lot of things different now that they would do. Christian was on our board, right? So I was Austria, he was Turkey, and Christian has the ability to Klein.
Oh.
So I was Austria, he was Turkey. Both of us had board topped in round 1.
Okay.
And he knew we both had board topped in round 1. So this was round 2, and he's got quite the ability to turn newer players to do things that perhaps they wouldn't normally do. So anyway, I'm happy with how I ended that game, but I think I could have got a lot better. So both of these guys, I think, are going to become more and more confident as they play. I think they both have a lot of great potential, and I'm looking forward to. He is which country in this one?
Stephen Hogue is Turkey.
They're both playing Turkey. Okay. Well, good.
So, all right, you heard it here first. Stephen Hogue is a multifaceted personality.
He was Umble's choice not to win the Player's Choice.
It's not that bad.
Not Umble's choice. All right, let's talk about some moves here. Let's see. Ed, you broke down springs in board 1. Let's go to Russ for the spring of board number 2.
Yeah. Obviously, Venice to Trieste. Well, Brandon, you would know. I don't see very many Kilopontos in face-to-face. I see him a little bit more in online. So I don't think that's what they're trying to do here, but maybe they can pull it off.
In the face-to-face hobby, Trieste is often given as a bargaining chip to pull the AI together, and especially to get tempo for the AI. So one thing you'll often see in face-to-face is that Ionian would go to Aegean here. And usually a clue that the Venice to Trieste was arranged is Rome to Apulia. It's a way that Italy can get Trieste without being so threatening to Austria that they feel like they have to retaliate for it. But usually that would be arranged. So if you saw Rome to Venice, then you would be convinced that Austria is the subject of an attack from Italy early on.
But and maybe I'm just off on this, but Budapest to Serbia, that's not. I mean, if you're wanting to, I guess if you're wanting to give Trieste, but if you're wanting to move them on to Serbia, that wouldn't be the move to do. If you're moving, that's actually the Kiloponto, but you're talking about just giving Trieste over. Yeah,
and we tend to call those just key openings in general when Trieste is given to Italy for the purpose of securing the alliance. The traditional Kiloponto actually does have Budapest to Serbia, but it would have Budapest and now Serbia going to Greece with support from Albania. And then Venice.
Right, but then Trieste isn't guaranteed Serbia because Bulgaria could bounce it.
Exactly, right. Which is why it's such a risky thing for Austria to do. There's a really easy way for Turkey to thwart it, often in concert with Italy. Like Italy can arrange that bounce and then go to Austria and say, I didn't know he was going to do it. So that's one of the reasons why the traditional Kiloponto is falling out of favor. Russ?
Well, the issue, of course, there is Austria is not a face-to-face player. So,
and Italy is.
Yeah. Now, Austria superstition is known for doing novel moves that end in his death. So, we'll have to see what happens.
Well, his game is all about building trust. I mean, so I wouldn't be surprised if this obviously was intentional. You've pointed out the move to Apulia may be part of that. He needs a friend. Obviously, with the RT cooperation. Right. So this might be just what the doctor ordered for him, even though it looks mighty risky.
And even if it wasn't, Italy should be able to clearly see the writing on the wall and say, okay, we got to get this together, or, both of us aren't going to be doing well.
Yeah, that's a really nice point. Even if Italy had been intending to attack Austria here, it would be foolish for Italy to continue to do that, given the very Russia-friendly Turkish opening. So, and for anyone who's unclear about what we mean by that, the fleet in Ankara has moved to Constantinople rather than going to the Black Sea, and this should be viewed as so threatening to Italy that any other plans Italy has should be dropped immediately in order to simply fight Turkey. Now, the nice thing about this opening, right, if it was arranged between Austria and Italy, Italy can now go to the Aegean and bounce Constantinople from getting there without suffering too much. So if this were a face-to-face game, I would expect to see it, that I'm familiar with. I would expect to see Ionian to Aegean here. All right, let's talk about the West. What Russ? What do you see here?
Well, nothing I would say that says anything more than I want to keep my options open. Nothing looks particularly aggressive. I mean, England's very neutral. Germany's very neutral. France is definitely neutral towards Germany, has a play on Belgium. It'll be really, we're going to see a lot in the fall, kind of perhaps where people are leaning, or maybe everybody bounces in Belgium. I don't know. But
this is an unusual set of opening moves for France. It's worth pointing that out. Yeah.
Well, maybe not. I've seen it a decent amount, but it generally the idea is I'm going to move this way so that I can still get 2 in the south if England moves to the English Channel. So that's generally the idea about it. I would say feel a little bit better about Germany than you do about England, and you want to still be able to have a play on Belgium. That's generally how that opening is used.
Ed, do you see anything else here you want to comment on?
No, but I want to see how Belgium turns out. I think there's more FG cooperation here than Russ may have hinted, so I'd be curious to see what happens.
Okay, we'll look for that. One other thing I do want to point out really quickly, which may have implications later, is Russia moving the fleet to Romania. This is not typically part of an RT, and the reason is that the fleet in Romania cannot do anything against Serbia or Budapest or Galicia. So if you're Turkey and you want an RT, you don't want to see a fleet here. That said, this may, if I were trying to arrange an ART, a three-way alliance between the three of them, this would be a good set of opening moves for that.
Man, so, we'll see. Okay.
It's on.
I don't want to see that though. That's not as fun.
Really? You don't like a good ART?
Well, as long as it devolves into somebody getting on the outs, sure, it's fine, no problem.
It usually does.
He likes to see victimhood.
No, I like to see victory. So
indeed. Interesting that both of those words start with the same four letters.
Right, exactly.
All right, let's go to fall of 1901. And Ed, you're on the clock here.
All right. Well, on the center of my screen, Russia gets into Galicia, while Austria moves to Bohemia and Trieste moves to Budapest. Okay. You were right about Ionian to Aegean. Oh, I guess the Budapest move makes sense now that I think about it for a second. And then in the West, it looks like England didn't get in orders, is my guess there.
That's too bad.
Germany picks up Holland and Denmark and does not bounce in Sweden, instead getting position in Baltic. And France gets 3 builds, which is dangerous to give Klaus 3 builds as France. He's kept his options open.
Especially with England not getting a build at all. This is
brutal.
This is a delicious opening here for France, I would say. There's a couple things that really stand out here. One, I really like these AI moves here. This shows a lot of forethought, and this is a really non-standard way to go about doing this. But Vienna can't do going to Galicia is pointless. Normally, moving to Bohemia here would be unwise because with only getting 1 build, you're going to have a hole in Vienna or Budapest. But moving the Italian army forward to Budapest really solves that problem. So now this AI is going to have a really nice line set up straight up and down the entire east here. So I really dig this in terms of setting up a defense against a defense against an RT that is now hampered by the fleet in Romania. This is not a great way for an RT to get going.
And the bounce in the Aegean.
Yeah, exactly. So they did. So Italy and Austria did probably the best set of moves they possibly could have here. Really, really nice coordination. And then the German pulling into Baltic and going up to Denmark here. It's an aggressive way to go about doing this. It risks, Denmark could have been bounced here, but sets Germany up perfectly to move forward in Scandinavia.
I personally prefer, now I understand if you're trying to keep a little bit better relations, but I personally prefer putting it in Skagerrak because that leaves you some flexibility on what you're going to do, because you may be looking at England right now and saying, hey, that's not the person to go with. And maybe you take support from Russia into Norway and you work something out there. I like Skagerrak just because it leaves you some options, but he's obviously wanting to forecast that he wants to have some play on Sweden.
Yeah, Skagerrak, it's a really nice point. Skagerrak would give you more tactical flexibility and more strategic flexibility, but it would, I like to tell people, beginners, they often talk about different, if they ask me for advice on different moves they can make, I like to tell them that where you put a knife will often determine what you stick it into. And, putting the knife in Skagerrak, it would encourage you to go after England, right? Because you have the option.
Right. Well, and because of England didn't put in their orders, I mean, that can communicate a few things to, do I really want to tie myself to what may be a sinking ship?
Yep.
So,
or do I?
Whereas here you're making a little bit more of a commitment. So, but of course he doesn't know, I'm sure, that the orders are not going in. But the nice thing about Skagerrak is you keep your options open, and you can, hopefully get both Russia and England making deals with you to make things happen. So yeah, it's not terrible or anything. I just personally, I like Skagerrak.
I'd like to be France. It's a good, I think Klaus will defer a build. I bet you that.
Let's see. Let's see. I should ask you how much you want to bet, but we're not doing that yet on the show. And
good job. I like it. I like it.
Really interesting set of builds. So France, first of all, waves a build and puts one of them, makes one of them the fleet in Brest, which gives lots of northern flexibility here. Germany puts down 2 armies with a western with an eastern focus, I should say. So Germany is signaling Western Triple here. England has no choice, can't signal anything. France is not signaling Western Triple here. If I were and remember, they can negotiate during builds here, so they could have gotten on the same page about this. If this were a Western Triple, I would have expected a fleet in Marseille for sure, and possibly a fleet in Brest. Whether an army in Paris or not, that would be unknown. In the East, no surprises, except maybe that Russia puts the second build in Moscow rather than Sevastopol. I think, given what looks certainly like an AI, I might have expected the army in Sevastopol. So interesting to see whether this ends up being a clue that the strategic situation in the East is not exactly what it seems. That maybe Russia is looking not to do an RT, but to do something else.
Well, and that might be the smart decision to make too, especially if Austria and Italy say, "Hey, why don't we do this together?"
You mean an AIR?
Yeah, if I'm Austria, I'm definitely, you want to break Turkey as fast as you can. I would offer to push him to Bulgaria.
Would you give it to Russia? Yeah.
Because here's the thing: if you get Russia-Turkey fighting, you're regardless, you can always take something back, right?
Yep.
So if you get Russia-Turkey fighting, that's the win. And if greed can get you across that, I think that's what you want, because it's the difference. You can always take something back if stuff falls apart, especially as you see Germany's going to be pretty focused on Russia. At least that's what it looks like. I think if you can hasten Turkey's demise, that's only going to be good for Austria, and not just banging your head against this forever. But you can. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to how Austria and Italy work this going forward.
Well, let us see. Spring of 1901 and Russ, spring 1902, I should say. And Russ, this is you.
Okay, so Romania went to Bulgaria.
Optimistically.
Yeah, and he went to Budapest.
So Austria gets into Bulgaria and Galicia here.
And I don't understand Ionian to Eastern Mediterranean, right?
What do you mean? It seems like it's part of a straightforward attack on Italy.
Well, it was going to bounce.
Turkey, I should say.
But I guess the idea...
he could have thought that there would be support into the Aegean, right?
Well, no. I mean, if Aegean, I guess if Greece isn't going to be supporting, you got to bounce one of them. But wouldn't you rather bounce Aegean than Eastern Med?
I think I would probably want to be. No, I'd probably do this. Probably go to Eastern Med. What would be the what's your feeling about the advantage?
Well, perhaps pushing that army back a little bit, just kind of keeps its forces a little bit pushed back as far as what you're doing next, and I mean, I suppose it's not really too big of a deal either way. I guess prioritizing Bulgaria is good, but the other thing is then that fleet, if you bounce Aegean, it can't influence anything on Bulgaria. So it keeps it, to me, it keeps it a little bit, you have a better chance of like Romania being supported in. And I know that's not probably a huge, maybe a huge possibility, but I think, you're keeping only one unit on Bulgaria. Maybe that's one way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from my perspective as Italy, I wouldn't care so much about Bulgaria. I'd be more concerned about keeping my positioning better and letting Austria. I mean, I want Austria to do well, but I don't want them to do well at my expense.
Sure.
So I think if you're Italy, I think you'd rather have a Turkish fleet in Aegean rather than Eastern Med. At least you can start to make a deal, potentially. Eastern Med can only be used against you. Anyway.
So what's Italy's next play here? Especially with now France, which France is not, that's not necessarily that France is moving to Italy, but what does Italy get next?
Ed, what do you think?
Well, I'll go to Tunis is my guess. Take that, but then I guess they'll try and get them into Romania. I mean, they should be able to do that or get close to it. Leave Budapest open.
Well, there's obviously the opportunity at any point that, especially now, so here's the thing: Russia's under attack from Germany, right? Turkey's going down to Bulgaria. I'm really interested to see if this Austria-Italy devolves at some point, because there's a lot of there's definitely opportunity to be opportunistic. I'm not saying that that's the smartest thing to do, but it's a mess, right? What's all kind of going on with Germany attacking Russia, Russia attacking Austria and Italy, trying to go to Bulgaria. It's hard, without knowing kind of the diplomacy behind it, what exactly is about to happen.
To me, I think at least France and Germany are trying to signal Western Tripolish a bit. Whether they do that or not, they have their options open if they want to. But you don't think so, Russ? You're shaking your head.
Well, again, this is my bias, but it's
not what you want to happen. It is what is happening.
Right.
That's the question. Is it happening?
It sure looks Western Tripoli to me.
Right. But is that the best decision?
For whom?
For France.
Well, France is set up to attack England if they want, obviously.
Right.
And so it wouldn't be if they took it slow, which is what you recommended before for France, it wouldn't be bad for England to commit itself a little further against Russia if you're France. You're disbelief. You didn't.
I'm trying to make sense. I'm trying to make sense with what is the best step forward, because Germany gets into Sweden, right, in the spring. So Germany's now in Sweden.
England.
We've got Austria and Bulgaria, and also there's play to be made right now on Romania. So they've got. I mean, he's probably not going to get it. Yeah, there's just so much going on here.
Why don't we move forward to follow two and see how it goes?
See what they decide.
All
okay,
right.
so
Ed,
there it is.
Ed, you're up.
All right, so France going to set up the convoy on England there, obviously, makes a move. I don't know how Burgundy bounced in. Oh, okay. There was a mutual bounce. So there's obviously some breakdown between France and Germany there. And let's see. Italy does go to Tunis and Romania. I'll say I predicted both of those. Whereas Turkey gets into Smyrna and Romania got into Bulgaria and Austria had to retreat into Serbia.
So Italy's getting two builds.
Italy's
getting two builds, and Russia got back into Sweden. I don't know what was
Denmark. Denmark did not support Sweden. This is a clear tactical error.
Would it have they have 3 on Sweden, right?
Oh, you're right. Sorry, Norway supported Sweden, Baltic, and the Gulf of Bothnia into Sweden, so it wouldn't have mattered. That's not what you want to see if you're Germany, huh?
No. Well, I wonder if France's moves are. You think France moved into the channel not to set up the convoy or anything like that, but to tell England, you need help against Germany, I'm here for you?
Well, he's just setting up position.
Yeah.
To me, France is just setting up position because there's not much England can do about it, right? So he's setting up position. He's making moves that seem to be, anti-German to try to take advantage of something there. At least that's what it looks like to me.
I think France's moves are inscrutable. I think these are delightful moves, in my opinion.
Right.
Right. This failure to advance the armies could easily have been coordinated with Germany. If France knows, either suggests it or Germany tells France that they're going to do the self bounce, then the move to Ruhr is he knows it's not going to work, and it gives him cover, if he wants to try to convince England that he actually is being anti-German. Now, any self-respecting England should look at the move to the English Channel with alarm.
Yeah.
Right.
And be worried about it. But not every England would. Some Englands would be, okay.
It's and he moved to Yorkshire, which was a smart move to make in case, of course, he's getting a build too. Yeah, so he's got some options.
He can build Fleet London now. And while he's made an enemy in Germany, which could be problematic, he at least has apparently a friend in Russia. So
yeah. Well, this is good. It's obviously good for England, but yeah, you're probably, if you're going to be concerned, you're concerned ultimately with France, right? You got to figure out something there to entice him not to convoy over against you, or
I'd love to ask England afterward whether they were sensing what exactly they were sensing here. Were they sensing that France and Germany were actually allied against them, and so decided to make a friend in Russia? What went into this decision of choosing Russia over Germany here?
Do you feel like that hold in Warsaw was the right call?
As opposed to what?
To using it to hit Galicia? Because how high of a likelihood do you think that Germany and Austria were going to attack that, and not, rather than Austria prioritizing Romania?
It's tough. It's paranoid, isn't it?
Yeah. I would have, because if you hit Galicia, you wouldn't have lost Romania.
Yeah.
You would have bounced it all.
Oh, you still get a build, right? No, you don't get a build.
No.
You're up, one, down, one. Yeah.
Right.
You get a build here.
What do you think Italy builds here? He gets 2, right? Army, Rome, Fleet, Naples, or?
Really depends.
He's probably not going to be holding Budapest super long, right?
Or Romania. Oh, right. Yeah, I could wave a build. Fleet, Naples, wave the other one.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Army, Rome would tell me that if I were Austria, that would tell me that I got a big problem.
Do you make that? Do you make that move or not? Because I mean, you're going to then have to deal with Italy yourself. So you keep the AI going.
If you're Austria?
If you're Italy.
Oh, if you're Italy.
I would think so. Turkey's not limited enough, right?
Yep, I would.
Yeah, I would. So you're, waving that could be, you want to use your fleets now against Turkey. Yeah, I think you probably, you need to continue on with the AI. For sure.
Yeah, especially with France having such a good setup right now. Yeah.
Am I right that Austria has no builds?
Austria has no builds. But
that worked out great.
But didn't pull one.
Right.
Okay, let us see how the builds turned out. We have an army in Rome and a fleet in Naples. So Italy is one to watch. We have the fleet in London. So the French-English relationship is one to watch here. Germany.
And France didn't build again. He waved the build again.
Waved the build again. Really, really patient, really savvy play. What's he going to build? What does he need to build for?
Right.
So
he's gonna unleash it at some point. It's just, we'll find out how he does it. I'm excited to see that.
Well, so Russ, you are you going to stay with us for a bit longer, or are you going to take off here?
Stay. All the cool people are staying.
I got David Hood on the waiting to come on as our guest. He's happy to stay with us until.
Let's let him on. We'll do that.
All right, so we'll bring David on. Well, Russ, first let's say goodbye to you. If you want to pop back on later, maybe during player interviews, let me know.
Okay.
Either way, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on DBN's first broadcast of the Nexus face-to-face community. Any parting words for us?
Well, just once again, let me plug the briefing. You can go to diplomacybriefing.com. You can sign up through email to get the weekly Zine every single Friday, and it'll tell you everything that's going on. You can see past issues there also. You can follow us through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and just keep up to date with all the virtual tournaments that are going on and any other online or face-to-face ones.
Please do go and subscribe to the newsletter, everyone who's watching. Russ, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again on a future broadcast.
Okay, thank you.
And welcome to the stream, David Hood. Welcome, David.
Hey, fellas, how you doing?
Good, David. How are you?
Good, Ed.
David Hood is a longtime face-to-face player. He has run the DixieCon tournament for several decades. He was the tournament director a couple months ago, or a month and change, when DixieCon went virtual for the first time and was really successful, and has really, I think, sort of accelerated this merging of the face-to-face and the online communities. So thank you, David, for doing that. I think you get a lot of credit for what's going on here.
I was just one of many, but it is very exciting. Very exciting.
David was also a commentator, one of our commentators on last week's broadcast of the Boston Massacre, which can be found on our YouTube channel. David, you've been watching some of the coverage? So, any thoughts on this game at the moment?
Well, I wish I was surprised that Jason Masbaum has virtually everything going in his favor, but he certainly tries to do that in every game. Sometimes he succeeds. Sometimes he fails, but he's certainly succeeding in this game. His position is really, really good. I was impressed with the move to Budapest anyway, because I thought that was a great way to put. Now, I wasn't actually watching the stream during that particular part of the equation here, but I really like putting all those armies on the front line like they did.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of Austria-Italy alliances, and that was a really, really nice way to arrange it at the end of 1901.
Yeah, as we all know, the issue with Austria-Italy alliance is what do you do with the second Italian army that's actually productive, which is why you end up with these debates about whether you do the key or whether you build the second fleet after you give the Trieste to the Italians, all sorts of things. I really like this particular setup for it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes here.
Yeah, you don't see this a whole lot, but now that we're looking at it, why not?
Absolutely. Right? I mean, you think Bohemia is sometimes the unwanted stepchild of spaces and diplomacy, but here's a good example of how it can be useful. It's another way to put pressure on Galicia. If you've got the Italian in Budapest, makes a lot of sense, and I'm not sure I've ever seen this done exactly this way before, but it's very creative. And as you know, Brandon, I love creative stuff. So.
Ed, just so you know, David Hood introduced me to the opening where Austria supports Vienna into Galicia from Budapest in spring of 1901.
After telling the Russians that you're going to bounce, it's a way to strand the guy in Warsaw so that he doesn't have anything to do in the fall. Similar to the way they do that in Burgundy, strand the German in Munich with nothing to do.
Which we've seen tonight. Yeah, David did this. He visited Chicago in January, and on my birthday, I was Italy and he was Austria, and he did that opening, and it almost worked out well for you, David.
Yeah, Brandon liked it so much he stabbed me. So let's not tell the end of that story.
Yeah, that's fine. I think so. If I'm going to have if I'm going to express one concern about this, I think it's better for Italy than it is for Austria, this setup. And I think if you're Austria, you have to, in 1902, make sure that you get a build.
Well, I was going to say, if I were Austria, I'd say, wait a minute, Budapest. What's happening is Galicia's going to Romania with support of Budapest.
Yep.
And the reason is exactly what you all pointed out a minute ago, which is Warsaw could have cut Galicia and probably should have cut Galicia. So this should have been Austria taking Romania, but again, props to Jason for for taking it himself.
Yeah, I think at the very least you have to follow Vienna into Budapest if you're going to do it this way, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Ed, have you seen this sort of setup before within Austria, Italy?
No, to be honest with you, I haven't. So I'm just as curious to see how it plays out as anybody else. I really did like the move to Budapest. I think originally on the stream I was like, "What happened?" And then saw the line quickly with you guys. But it's really good play by Italy right now. But I'm not counting out France either.
Yeah,
France is in a great spot. And
he's playing a very crafty France over there.
Yeah. By the way, if I had remembered, I should have noticed that this was Jason Mastbaum. If I had noticed that when we were debating whether we'd see an Army Rome, I could have put very strong odds on that.
he's capable of a wave, but it wouldn't be my first guess. Jason
is an aggressive player. He especially likes the tactically aggressive, splashy move, I think. And this looks like that. So all right. So let's before we move on to the other game, let's play the Who Would You Like to Be? Ed, it sounded like you were leaning toward France. Would you?
I'd go 52% France, 48% Italy, and 0 everybody else.
Okay. And David Hood?
I agree with that. I actually, it's probably closer to a 50-50 toss-up for me. But I'm not sure that I would count out the Russians here, depending on how their relationship with England goes, because there's still some potential here. The Germans are not going to last long in their anti-Russian stance. I doubt it. They will anyway, just given what's happening here. But so I would say depends, because to be honest, Jason's also he just built Army Rome. What is that supposed to mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that the AI is continuing. I guess we'll find out in a minute.
That's the most interesting question on the board, and obviously he's not going to feel threatened from France, and France would really love for him to do it. So it'd be great to see what happens.
Yeah, I would even think about cheating in favor of saying Italy's in the best position, just because look, they got France to do exactly what they wanted.
That's a good point.
All right, we will find out when we return to Nexus Generation. For now, though, we are going to go back to Toyota Nexus, and we left this game after Winter 02 builds, which saw Doc Binder in England putting down a fleet. There was some debate about whether this should be 2 armies or fleet and an army. And Richard in Russia put down a northern fleet, which we liked a lot. As that it was clear that England was a major threat for Russia, and everywhere else on the board was static. So,
well, the fact that the fleet St. Pete got put down shows you that Doc made the right call by making the fleet in Edinburgh. I think.
All right, let us look at spring 1903, and I'm going to try to move us a little bit faster. I think we've luxuriated in a lot of really nice early analysis, but I think we can pick up the pace a little bit. Spring 1903. So, Ed, you were calling the springs for this game. Let's stick with that.
Okay. Looking at the Balkans and giant mess, and it doesn't appear that anyone advanced anywhere ultimately. France continues the attack on Italy. So I guess moves into Tuscany, North Africa, bounces in Tyrrhenian Sea. And England tries to get into Norway, fails, takes the Norwegian Sea. So England and England and Russia obviously fighting. Germany I can't tell. Is that a black arrow that they got into Denmark and England got into Sweden?
Correct on both of those.
All right. So we're having some cooperation there. We said that Germany's goal was to get somebody fighting someone else. And they were able to keep Kiel for the meantime.
Yeah, it seems unlikely they'll keep both Kiel and Munich unless England stays on their side. And then, so in the south here, so there's a whole lot of nothing in the east. In the south, so there was some criticism from Russ, I believe, especially of France's focus on Italy and moving into the east when the west was still unsettled. David, how do you feel about that in this case?
I'm not sure I'm against it. I mean, you need to do something. I'm not a good. I'm not a big fan of stasis, at least for long periods of time. So France had to go one way or the other, particularly in a game that's going to end probably in 1907. There's only so much time you need to spend sitting around twiddling your thumbs, as we say. So I think going to Italy makes sense because he obviously decided not to attack Doc, which, given the fact that Doc's in a strong position, I don't know that I can argue with that. Is this going to immediately cause a lot of great advantages for France? I'm not sure, but he's already in decent position. He's already in Tuscany, for goodness sake. That's not bad.
Italy, you do a 50-50 call, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Yep. All right. Let's see how the fall works out. And David, you are up on the call for this one.
Well, France decides to go to Tyrrhenian instead of taking the shot at Tunis, which I think is probably right for the fall term because you would expect the Italians to defend Tunis. There's always a chicken or the egg thing or a fake each other out kind of thing, but I think this is a pretty good guess. Also interesting, the French. Yeah, look at that. That must be what the Austrians said. Either he assumed the Austrians were going to do that, or the Austrians told him they were going to do that. That's actually pretty awesome. And he takes Munich, and he takes Munich, and he gets to the Ruhr, and the English take Kiel, and the English take Norway, and they're off to the races.
Bjorn Borg not only won 5 Wimbledons, but he's doing a hell of a job in this game right now.
This is spectacular. I love this.
Yeah, that's a Brandon Fogel type move right there.
I love this.
Mind control, some kind of mind control or mind guessing or something.
But especially if you're Austria, right? Because you're stuck in this AI against this RT. It's not going anywhere. You're just kind of a sitting duck, and your game really has just little chance for advancement. And here, you get to with your ally, you get to tell them that you're protecting him. I'm sure Italy was on board with this. And oops, sorry. And you get a build, and your situation is more secure. You have much higher, if you're playing for a draw, you have much higher chance of getting to a draw now. The alliance between the two of you isn't any stronger, but it's more of you plus Italy rather than the two of you together.
I mean, that was the only way to guarantee that the French didn't take anything, was to do those moves. Right. And so you got complete cover as Austria. And for all we know, this was just a guess on the part of the French that, caused the Austrians to inadvertently take Venice. I mean, who knows?
Yep.
I will say one thing before you move on, Brandon, because it's burning a hole in my head to say this. Both of these games have a Russian army in Silesia, or has had a Russian army in Silesia doing virtually nothing. It's like, the old joke about Belgium's where the English army goes to die. Apparently, Silesia is where the Russian armies go to then do nothing consequential.
Yeah, certainly in the early game, because it's you just have nothing else to combine it with in order to project force forward. And of all the things you could do with Silesia here, going to Prussia seems like
I'm having a hard time figuring that one out. I mean, just like in the other games, Silesia, go to Bohemia. If you're really going to fight Austria, then go down there and see what you can do.
EF is looking really good. What does Italy do on the disband, right? You think just knock out Aegean? I mean, I know AI, I mean, there's nothing else. I don't see a better option.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to protect your home and try to work something out with Turkey, I think. You agree, David?
Yes.
Let's give some props to Doc Binder for not only holding on to Norway but picking up Sweden at the same time. His position in the north is impregnable now.
One day he's going to learn to play diplomacy. Just one day.
Yeah, indeed. So, all right. Let's move on to winter builds. Let's see what happens here. We've got a fleet in the south. No surprise. It will take France some time to gain anything. I suppose they could potentially gain. Oh no, they can be kept out of Rome rather, I should say.
Well, it depends on what. Yeah, you're right. Actually.
Yeah, even if they come down to Tyrolia.
Either way.
But then there's guesses and question of, there's a real question, I think, of whether France wants to commit these armies south or keep them in the north to either do something or at least protect the dots. Now we do get the second army from England. Russia pulls a southern unit, and Italy pulls the fleet in Aegean. All right, let's stick with this for another year. Spring 1904. Ed, you are the spring guy for this board.
Okay, so Bulgaria gets into Serbia, whereas Eastern Med gets into the Aegean. So, whereas then Austria, I guess, got into Galicia. So Turkey makes a move on Austria in the south, and then the northern part of Austria-Hungary. Austria playing its advantage there. France gets into Tunis. So just see that. And then it looks like Rome.
France also gets into Rome. This is the interface here is confusing, but Venice supported Tuscany into Rome.
Oh, goodbye, Italy, then. All right. So Austria. All right. I understand that now. Thanks for explaining that, Brandon.
Yeah.
And then the north, the EF moves.
Sorry. One more point in the south here. Greece did not get into Bulgaria because it was clicked on East Coast.
Oh my God!
This was
that's a common problem.
South Coast.
Yep. Instead of South Coast, the player clicked on East Coast. All right. So sorry. Go to the north now.
Yeah. Well, for those not familiar with Backstabber, it's you have to click the right area of the territory to get it correct. And so if you just click on Bulgaria without realizing that the interface splits it in half, you can mess up. And that's apparently what's happened here. And then
it's worth pointing out that in the face-to-face game, this would not be considered a misorder. Greece, since it's unambiguous which coast Greece to Bulgaria is destined for, there is no coast needs to be specified for this order in normal face-to-face.
So it's only when it could have been technically either.
Correct. So Constantinople to Bulgaria requires the designation of a coast, but if it's unambiguous, so if Gascony is going to Spain, for example, in face-to-face, you don't need to specify the coast. On Backstabber, you do. And
definitely Backstabber.
Yep. Now, what's interesting, right, is that Austria is coming from the online world. Austria is not a face-to-face player here, but because it's time limited, right, doesn't have the luxury of 24 hours to work out these orders. Maybe that's what caused the misorder in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it could happen to anybody. Okay. Yeah. So that's probably, could have been a lot of things. And the FG rolls on in the north is the other big news. I mean, they're now into Berlin, and Silesia and, not the FG there. Sorry, the EF, I guess. I might be bored apart, but anyways, England's in Berlin.
I think that's a Freudian slip, Ed. It's actually EFG, apparently.
Yeah,
look at the Germans going east, and the Russians wanting to visit Livonia. Just looks like a fun place this time of year. It doesn't accomplish much of anything except maybe help defend St. Petersburg or something.
My brain was wired from the other game, and I had to realize here that Germany just sold themselves off to be a janissary of EF. So my apologies for temporarily forgetting that.
Well, I mean, as opposed to what, I guess, is one way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, let's give some props to Doc Bender here for a convoy from Edinburgh to Sweden. That is not something you see a whole lot of.
Indeed.
It's a multi-fleet convoy, and it goes to the inner Scandinavian province, not the outer one, which is the typical.
Yep.
So, okay, let's move on into the fall of 1904. And David, you are up.
Bye-bye, St. Pete. Even with Livonia trying to help, because, of course, the Baltic goes for the sole purpose of destroying the Russians. That's the point of the German orders. So that's, I found interesting.
Now, David, what do you think of Germany? So England takes both of the German centers, and
with a little lie to Germany, you can keep Berlin. I'll move out of Berlin to Prussia. Just support me there.
Yeah,
or
that's just wishful thinking on Germany's part that maybe England will let him live. But at this point, Germany's done his job, and Doc has no reason to keep him around. So it's hard to imagine.
You don't think Doc could have used the forward units in some way?
He maybe, but he's got to worry about the French doing screwiness,
like
and
going
so
to,
he wants to
Holland?
make sure. Yeah, like that. Now that could very well be arranged.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm just saying, now there's a guy in Holland, so now you got 2 French guys on Kiel, and so it's at some point you do like the forward units, but the best units to order are the ones that you yourself write the orders for.
Indeed.
So forward units are good, but he's not that much further forward than the English army already in Berlin. So, the English.
He has a fleet in Finland too. I mean, so Ed, what do you think about this decision by the English to discard the Janissary? How do you feel about that?
I have no problem with it, right? Because I sort of agree with the analysis. Just it's one less variable to worry about. I assume it was arranged that Ruhr goes to Holland, right? Couldn't have been any other way than to keep a balance among the numbers. But what sort of interests me is when you're in an EF or any alliance, and one player has all the units behind and one has them in front. Sometimes I like, being the player behind a little bit. Now I know England's going to get builds here, right? So I'm looking out to see if there's going to be any movement between those two coming up.
Wait, so which would you rather be in the EF? Both of them are getting 2 builds here. It's worth keeping in mind.
I think I'd rather be France if I was going to go all in. I mean, I understand that England's got enough fleets, but they're way up northwest for the most part, and there's a lot of German territories, and now you can put some pressure on England.
All right, David, tell us about what happened in the East. I cut you off before.
Well, I was just going to say, look at Apulia taking Rome. I find that moderately interesting. The Turkish army of Serbia leaves Serbia, goes to Greece, allowing the Austrians to keep Serbia, which is, I think, an interesting choice. I'm having a hard time seeing this. Obviously, Romania goes to Bulgaria with the Turks' support. Is that what that looks like?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So that's certainly interesting as well.
Russia actually gets a rebuild here. They stay even on dots, but they had a PIF in St. Petersburg, so they're gonna get to put a unit down.
Good. Maybe they can figure out something to do with that unit. I'm not sure what Warsaw Moscow is. I'm just a little puzzled by what that was supposed to mean. I don't know.
Well, yeah, we'll find
what do
out.
I know?
All right, let's one minor thing to point out here. This Tyrrhenian Sea actually ordered a convoy of Rome to Naples rather than a supported move. Presumably that was a misorder, although it doesn't really matter. Even if it had been supported, it wouldn't have gone. That said, so Venice supported Apulia back to Venice. So Venice has sort of had it both ways, I think, this year. And here is how the builds turned out. We have England not putting any builds down. I'll check with the GM, but I'm going to presume that was a mistake. France puts down a fleet Brest, which is I would be worried about if I were England, especially not being able to put any builds down. Russia puts down an army, which is not a surprise. And it's anybody's guess what Austria is doing, or how Austria feels about what's happening. But it may be that they're part of a late developing ART here and just fine with it.
I think that might be the only. That's their only option at this point. ART has to get it together.
Well, or diplomatically unhinge the EF alliance. And Doc may have done that himself by not building. I just can't figure that out. And if I'm France, I'm thinking, wow, let's decide what to do here now that there are no English builds. I'm assuming he built Fleet Brest because he was worried about English builds maybe coming his direction. And of course, if I were England, that's probably what I would have considered doing at this point.
It certainly seems like the kind of build where, you can always ask for forgiveness later. if you need to. There's certainly no harm in a defensive build, a defensive move that you can at least justify as defensive.
Well, they may have range builds and just forgot to put them in, or miss the thing on the interface. So this may not.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've asked Hunter. It looks like we're getting a response. I will let you guys know. All right, let us go over to board 2. So we've just spent 2 years with board 1, and let's go over to board 2. This was the board where Klaus, as France, had moved units back to put in position in the west. He has a build in the bank that he opted not to use here. Jason Massbaum Jason Massbaum put down the army, so we were very excited, or interested, I should say, to see whether the AI would suffer some stress because of this. And the East is generally a mess. That was what we left this with. Okay, so let us see what happens here. Spring, this is David going to be your call. Spring of 1903.
Well, there's a lot of attempted moves in the East.
Again.
Yeah, that happened again. I mean, the Italian army going to Apulia, I think, makes sense. Even if ultimately that is an anti-Austrian army, it can still be that way. Just get it convoyed somehow if you're trying to hide that a little bit. Because Tyrolia can be explained in lots of ways. And it may very well be that Jason's decided to keep the AI around. A mess, as you described it, Brandon, is actually what Italy generally wants. What Italy doesn't want is mid-Atlantic to the Western Med. That is what Italy doesn't want. It's not as if he can't do something about it, because it's just a one fleet move, which is actually a little curious unless your goal is just to sort of disrupt the Italians. You're not really going to accomplish a whole lot moving one fleet down there. Didn't even go to Piedmont with the army, for example, from Marseille. In the west, we've got the English moving up into the Skagerrak, which seems like a pretty good idea to me. Has Klaus decided what he's doing? I mean, he's sending a fleet to the Western Med. That's what he's doing. Besides that, he's trying to move into Germany. Certainly doesn't use the English Channel to do anything screwy with the English, although the English covered London anyway, just in case. But the attack on Munich just puzzles me a little bit. It's a spring turn. Go for Ruhr. If you're going to, so that's a lot of red that could have been black on those little arrows. Those could have been black arrows instead of red.
If you want to advance.
Again, though, I understand that and understand the theory behind it, even though it's not my usual style, but I'm not sure I understand that theory in a time-limited game.
I think Germany thinks France is trying to advance against it. I mean, last time we saw the bounce, right, from Ruhr and Silesia, the mutual bounce. This time we see a different way to do that, where there's a standoff and Prussia moves back to Berlin. I think Germany thinks France has got some evil with that.
Yeah, and if I'm France, why not go ahead and advance? I've decided not to attack the English. I've sent Mid-Atlantic to the Western Med. So I've already, if my theory was to be coy and go to the Irish Sea or something, which, at this point might not have been terrible, because look, he would have taken Liverpool. But he's decided not to do that. So you decided instead to at least make it look like you're advancing into Germany. Why not instead of looking like that, why not just actually advance into Germany? That might be better than looking like you're going to advance into Germany. Again, in a time-limited game. I just not sure what Klaus is up to here. He may have been too clever by half here a little bit, if this was on purpose. I mean, I assume he realizes that Ruhr would have been a better spring move. Supported attack on Ruhr.
Well, who's getting Holland? I assume that's the debate right now between the English and the French.
Well, it'd be a lot easier to figure that out if there was a guy in Ruhr to make sure it actually happened, without having to use extra units. And then you'd make a supported attack on Munich or whatever. I mean, I have a lot of trouble with the tempo part of this. Even if it was intentional, I'm going to argue with that intent a little bit.
Ed, do you think slow playing as France here is a mistake?
Well, I like David's point about 1907, but Klaus is a very deliberate player. That's his style. I mean, I just faced him 2 weeks ago. He's slow and steady, wins the race, and he's smart enough to try and figure out how to grab some dots at the end if he needs to. But to me, this looks like he just wants to keep as many options open as possible. And he wants others to collapse in front of him. That's not I've noticed a lot of European players tend to play that way. And so it's not shocking that I see that strategy here.
Actually, that's a really good point, Ed. This may be a European bias a little bit. I'm just saying that even if that's the way you generally play, you might want to turn that off. You might want to switch the other way in a time-limited game like this.
Klaus is a European player, and I think he's used to playing the C Diplo style, which finishes after 1907. And the European culture around that scoring system and time-limited games is one to prioritize balance of power. So I look at these moves and I see balance of power. I see the Mid-Atlantic to Western Med it's a move not designed to produce any growth on his part, but to slow down Italy, just to throw a little bit of a gear in the ointment and keep him from blowing through the East in some way. And I can view the keeping of Munich open also in that light. It feels like Klaus does still have a lot of flexibility, like Ed is saying here. I mean, even something like Convoy to Wales is still on the table if he decides that he doesn't like England getting the upper hand and wants to, sort of keep England from advancing. And Germany has been chastened now. And Germany,
I think you're doing a good job of trying to present a good argument, but like it. Maybe Convoy to Wales might actually get you a center at some point. Why not take one now instead? For good, even in C Diplo.
Well, I predict he takes one in the fall. It's just a matter of which one. I bet he'll I think he'll get into Holland. Let's see.
How much is that bet? I'll tell you. I'll let you know if I take it or not. We're talking $10, $20, $50.
I'm starting to doubt myself now that I got the.
Yeah, it's not willing to put his money where his mouth is. That's what I figured.
All the money in the world on this one.
Oh wow,
all right.
That's a lot.
Let's so here for all the money in the world. Wait, who won? I forgot who.
England and Holland.
You thought Klaus was going to get it?
No, I didn't actually, because I'm sure the English player said he was down. But yeah, I mean, down on dots. But it's good round for England, who missed orders in fall 1901, if I'm not mistaken, to get two back from a pretty bad position. Holland and Denmark go to England with Russian support. A lot of moving around. The Italian army goes to Munich, but doesn't succeed because Silesia supported him from Berlin. And then, let's see here, in the Balkans, Austria takes Romania and Budapest. So for all the talk about Italy going ahead and maybe stabbing Russia and building the army, the online player takes the first stab at the face-to-face one. So we'll see what happens. But it is a false stab for two. It's a bad turn for Italy.
Yeah, I mean, presumably one of these is a stab. If I had to guess, I would say Budapest. But either way, the AI, which had been, I think, clearly in Italy's favor, has now shifted decisively, if it still is an AI, into Austria's favor. All right, let's keep moving forward here. We've got some players from this game who are starting to comment in our comment section. So let's see if we can figure out what happened and then maybe get some of them on the stream here. For builds, we see Klaus in France putting down that unit, which was from 1901. So this was waved twice and is now materializes as an army. England gets two more builds, puts down fleet in London to presumably to counter the English fleet in the English Channel or the French fleet in the English Channel, and an army in Edinburgh. Austria gets the two happy army builds, which you got to feel pretty good about. And Italy drops the army in Apulia after having had an army piffed. So Italy drops from 6 to 4 here. All right. Spring of 1904. David Hood.
All right, let's see. Rearranging from the Italians, now that they're dealing with a hostile Austrian, they decide to go to the Adriatic and Venice. Austria, on the other hand, decides maybe to throw in with the Russians on a bid to take Munich. That's what it's looking like. The English have decided that the English part of the English Channel needs to be more reality than just a name, and don't really like the fact that the French were sitting there all this time. Even if the French were friendly, that's not a very friendly place to be. So the English said, I've had it with that. So, I was sort of expecting this at some point. You can't just sit there forever if the English have anything to do with it. Eventually, they're going to say, look, leave, or I'm going to make you leave. Because it's just too threatening. It's a knife at my belly that you can thrust anytime you want. The French, I don't think, were expecting this. I mean, they're plowing into Ruhr.
The channel supported Picardy in. I mean, I think he thought something might be up with England.
Well, he says what now?
The English channel supported Paris to Picardy, so I don't.
For lack of anything better to do, I think. If you're going to sit in the English Channel and try to make England be okay with it, you just do ineffectual moves with it. Well, I used it to support blah, blah, blah. But in this case, the English have said, great, but at this point, you're leaving.
Right.
All right. Let's so Russia, I think, does something a little bit curious here, which is to move to the Baltic to get more purchase over Berlin, but send St. Pete south to Moscow here rather than to Finland. So presumably thinking that they're going to have something working with England here and does not have to worry about covering Sweden. But yeah, this is fascinating. So I think we have confirmation here about whether Austria was supposed to take 2 or not. And the move from Ionian to Adriatic says nope. Fall of 1904. Ed, what do you see?
Okay, Turkey into Greece with Italian support, but Austria into Bulgaria, which is a Russian dot right now, with Austrian help. Russia coming back to Sevastopol to defend in the Balkans, and then Italy back in Trieste. All right. So there was a stab and doesn't look like much of a follow through. I can't tell what's going on with Austria and Russia. Before they looked like they're on the same side, and now they look like they're against each other. So I don't know who's on first there. Not good for Germany as Berlin goes, Kiel goes, and Munich goes. I think Germany's done if I'm reading the board correctly.
Thanks for playing. Go Pats.
Goodness gracious.
Germany gone from both games, if I'm not mistaken.
And in spectacular fashion in both games.
Yeah, that's right.
All in a big poof. All in a big poof.
The other game was 2-0, and this is 3-0 in one turn. I love this. I really want to know if this was arranged or if Russia sniffed it out and decided they could get Berlin with just with 2 units.
That's a good point.
I mean, it could easily be arranged, right? If Russia is confident that England's going to hit Kiel and France is going to hit Munich, then they know they only need 2 on Berlin.
Correct.
Yeah,
there's still some goofiness going on between England and France, though. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
Looks like one of the comments said it was arranged.
Okay, so Steve Hogue, who is playing Turkey, got some indirect information for us. But yeah, there's lots of, this is what I like to call dipsy doodle in the South here. Just, musical chairs going back and forth. Clearly, I don't know if Austria thought that Italy was back on board, that they're hoping to get an AI going here again. But with the fleet in the Adriatic, it's really hard to imagine Italy not, trying to move forward against Austria, and supporting Turkey into Greece supports that. So let's move forward here. We got winter builds, another fleet in the north. So clearly France and England are at war. Another fleet and an army in Venice confirms that Italy is planning to fight a land war. And we have 2 armies from Turkey. Well done, Stephen Hogue.
People have had it with Austria. This is the way I'm reading this.
All right. And let's keep going with this game. The other one's going on. So let's see if we can finish this. And we just have one more year. Spring 1905. This is David Hood.
All right, Turks move forward with the convoy into Greece. following up on the taking of Bulgaria, so that's fun. Italians convoyed Albania, which is definitely the right tactical move at this point, even given the fact that the Austrians take Trieste back, because you're in position now to take it back if you need to, and you'd rather have your army in Albania. So there's some good stuff going on there. Look at the EF moves. French move out their fleets down to Spain and mid-Atlantic. They do not, for example, make a supported attack on English. So maybe there's some rapprochement going on here, to use a French pronounced word.
Did that hurt, David?
Rapprochement.
Was that painful on your tongue? Be honest.
It was not.
Okay.
It was okay. I did take French in high school. So.
Oh, you did?
I love the state count between the two.
I took French and then I discarded it in favor of German. I'm not sure what that means, but it means something. All right, so Norway to St. Pete, I guess that was going to happen. Russia must have thought he had a deal with England. I think that's what Hogue was saying earlier anyway. So England says, yeah, we had a deal, and now we don't have a deal, because I'd like to have St. Pete myself, please. Convoying his army down into Holland, which, of course, continues to be both what he should do if he's with France and what he should do if he's not with France. So it's hard to know. I guess they're still fighting. I just think it's interesting that the French moves are what they are, if that's true. Or maybe the French thought they were going to not fight anymore. But I'm just not sure why you wouldn't go ahead and try to force the English Channel in this situation instead of what he did. I guess he got there anyway, didn't he? From Belgium.
Brandon, do you think Munich to Ruhr? I mean, I can't tell who's on whose side. Is a big problem looking at this board, right? Because you could have had a supported move into Berlin. On the other hand, Tyrolia gets into Munich. What do you think is going on with that move?
I mean, it looks to me like France is all in on war with England, and the army in Tyrolia is useless against England, and so this is
why go to Spain though. That just puzzles. Why not go to the North Atlantic if you're really truly all in?
The only thing that I can think of there is that he was worried about Italy taking a flyer turn us to Western Med here, and just wanted some more defense. You know, there's a risk of the army or the fleet getting marooned in the North Atlantic, sort of stuck up north, and not able to do much to help in the attack against England, but also not able to help in the defense of the Iberian Peninsula. That would be my speculation, I should say.
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, it's on the knife's edge for Klaus the whole game, right? It's balance of power, or is he all in? I mean, he holds the knife at a lot of throats right now.
Yep. But if he's going for the board top, which would be a C Diplo thing to do at this point in the game, England is his rival now. Italy is, Italy dropped. Italy's not the one. Well, Italy has a chance at the board top. Italy's not the main rival here. So it would be, my guess is that he would be balancing, trying to get one off of England while also holding them back, while also protecting a southern flank.
He's got good position. The fleets and armies are set up well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's got a, let's see, does he have a shot at Holland? Not really. He needs Russian help to do anything against England in the fall here.
And why would the Russians do that, really?
Well, because England's attacking them, right, in the north.
Well, I was just thinking there might be something better to do than to, quote, let the French take Holland. Like, how about supporting me to Kiel, France?
I think that's the Russian pitch, obviously, because it can't be,
Yeah, and if you're France at this point, do you offer support into Kiel and then just take Holland?
Well, maybe.
I mean, you can almost guarantee Holland. There is I think some guessing here whether Kiel has the guts to cut Ruhr or not. North.
Yes, knowing that there is a time limit coming might make you do things like promising the Russians X and then doing Y, because what's the consequence in the long run?
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of questions. I mean, let's see what happens. I'm too excited now. I got to know what happens.
Go, Hordes, go!
Right.
Yeah. Well, before we see this, let's give some props here to Jacob for going for it. So Jacob was the young player, recent college grad in New York City, playing just started a couple months ago. He was the COVID newbie, And this has been some skilled play up here in the north, going for the board top, and also skilled defensive play here in the south, protecting his flank against France. So there's some guessing to happen here, right? Russia could go for Norway or could decide not to, in hopes that St. Crete would fall back. So there's a really interesting guess going on up here. Otherwise, I think he, depending on whether he's willing to risk Kiel or not, Kiel. Actually, there's a lot of interesting play here. So let us see what happens. Oh, tragedy. For England anyway. All right, this is Ed's turn here. Ed, what do you think?
My watch still says spring. Okay.
It just changed. It just changed.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. There was a little bit of a delay there.
All right. So France helps Germany get into Kiel. So England down 1, and France gets Holland. So that's and then looks like in the north, France gets into the North Sea. Ouch! A valuable piece of real estate on the diplomacy board. That in the Black Sea. So France makes his move, and it didn't work out well from the young college kid from England, although he did pick up St. Petersburg and kept France out of the mid-Atlantic. Out of the English Channel. There was a bounce in Western Med. I'm going to guess that was arranged. And then a lot of mutual support. It looks like it's headed towards, at least the people in the Balkans want to draw at this point. That's the only conclusion I can make.
Yeah, so this is what we call a learning experience for Jacob. And spoiler alert, I've got Jacob and Klaus sitting in the waiting room, the green room. We're going to bring them on in a second because this game does draw right after this turn. But this is just a learning experience, right? He actually guesses right up here. He could have done a self bounce if he wanted to. That would have been, I think, it would have worked out better, certainly in this case. But here, just too conservative. Kiel to Ruhr would have enabled him to keep Holland. If he really wanted to guarantee the keeping of Holland, north to Belgium combined with Kiel to Ruhr would do that. One thing we didn't know was that Klaus could both, support Russia into Kiel and take a swing at Holland, which is what he did. And from the numbers perspective, that there's no reason not to do that. Okay, so this is. I'm sorry. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
No, this really
draw after this.
Yep.
Klaus having everything going his way. Good for him.
So this is how the builds turned out. Klaus puts down Brest and takes the lead in terms of centers, and England gets a rebuild here, I believe. Because they had 2 units piffed and only went down 1. So. And then we get a couple armies in the east and the drop of the fleet in Tunis, which, if France wanted to do, France would probably focus up in the north. But the game draws here in the spring, right after those builds. And that means that Klaus takes the board top, which in the absence of a solo and a scoring system is the only thing I think that it seems like people were playing for at this point. So guys, we've got Jacob and Klaus ready to come in here. I think to keep the screen less cluttered, I'm gonna give you guys a break and bring on the other two, and then I'll bring you guys back after we do this post-game interview. All right?
Fair.
All right. See you guys in a bit. And let's welcome to the live stream Jacob, whose last name I don't know. We'll find out in a second, from New York. Hey, Jacob.
Hey, what's up?
Can you tell us your last name real quick? Faber Rico. Okay. Yeah. And from the Netherlands, we have Klaus de Graaf. Klaus, welcome to the live stream.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Klaus.
All right.
Hey, Jacob.
So is this the first time you guys are seeing each other? I know you've heard each other's voices.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
First time.
All right. Congratulations, you guys, on ruling this board. This was an EF dominated board for much of the game. The East never really resolved and provided some excitement here and there, but the story of this game was really the two of you.
It was an F-dominated board.
Say more about that, Jacob.
I knew he was screwing with me the whole game. Him and Italy were clearly tight, right? So I was like, okay, he's either gonna jump me from the gate, or we're gonna kill Germany, and then he's gonna jump me. But I was trying to figure out what I could do about that, and I figured it out for about 4.5 years, and then didn't figure it out anymore. But frankly, for me, I was like, I'm playing against a bunch of experienced people, and I have never played on these time limits before. And I NM'd in 1901 and didn't get any builds. So getting wherever I got, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
I knew the knife was going in eventually.
what happened here in fall of 1901?
I forgot the rule that you should always put in some set of orders, and I was getting caught up on whether I should convoy to Norway or convoy to Belgium, and submitted my orders late. I was going to convoy to Belgium, and so then that's just what happened.
So what was what were negotiations like between the two of you in spring 01? And Jacob, let's start with you.
It was I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest. We didn't really we didn't really come up with a plan. We just kind of talked, but we didn't really say much. We're just like, okay, we'll DMZ the English channel. To be honest, I wasn't sure entirely what I wanted to say. Then I went to talk to Russia, and Russia was not Russia. Germany was like Western triple, Western triple, Western triple, which was odd to me. But honestly, between me and Klaus, I was just like, we're just going to see what happens.
All right, Klaus. First of all, where in the Netherlands are you?
I am just above Amsterdam.
Okay, thanks for joining us all the way from Europe. I know it's pretty late over there.
It's midnight.
What was spring 01 negotiations like from your perspective?
Yeah, pretty good. Everyone was friendly. Like Jacob said, he said he didn't want to go to English channel. I believed him. So I wasn't going to go there either. I prefer just picking up the neutrals. And then Germany said he wasn't going to go to Burgundy. And usually I prefer to go there anyway, but just arrange the bounce. But this time I believed him. He had a pretty elaborate plan of moving Denmark to Baltic Sea and Kiel to Denmark. And it sounded reasonable. So I thought, yeah, okay, he's probably indeed going to DMC Burgundy. So I bought that one as well. Moved to Picardy instead. And I believed Jason that he would be willing to DMC Piedmont. And I was right on all of them. So yeah, I was pretty happy with 1901.
Yeah, it's not a bad situation to be a France where you get away with the DMZ in the English Channel, Burgundy, and Piedmont. Well done on that. So, okay, take us a little forward here then. And after England didn't get any builds, so Klaus, you had a decision here about whether to build all three or not. Talk us through your reasoning.
I didn't think it was a good time to pounce on Italy, actually, especially with England missing their movement. I figured it wasn't. That didn't feel right. I would just be sending all those fleets down south, and I'm not a huge fan of it, actually, of the Western Triple as France. It can be good in some situations, but with this tight AI, who's clearly doing advanced Key Lepanto, I thought he would have enough units spare to stop me for a very long time. And yeah, at that point, when I saw that Jacob missed his moves, I figured it's better for me to just focus on the north.
And Jacob, how deep did you think you were in it at this point? Did you think your game was over here, or did you feel like you'd figure out a way to come back?
I mean, I didn't think I would have a great game, but I was like, at this point, I was just like, we'll see what happens. And I talked to people, and the good thing for me was, so Russia is even newer than I am. And Germany said to me, he was like, I want to do in Western Triple because I want to take Russia out because it's going to be easy because he's new. And so I was like, okay, two things. Number one, I'm new and he's going to figure that out, and then I'm going to be next. Two, I can just go to Russia and say, hey, Germany wants to kill you because you're new, and then he's going to kill me. Let's not let that happen. So he was willing to be friends with me, and I was like, okay, well, I can get Norway, and then maybe we can move on Germany. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I wasn't expecting much, but
all right. So you felt like you felt confident actually that you could get out of this at this point. Good for you. That's look a lot of.
I wasn't super confident. I was just like, we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, but you weren't panicking and you weren't giving up, which is that's great, especially for a newer player. So let's move forward here. This was an interesting turn, right? This is when it looked like all three of you EFG were in on the Western Triple. Klaus's move, especially. I mean, Jacob, you were just trying to redo 1901 at this point.
Yeah.
And but Klaus, right, moves the fleets towards the Mediterranean. You back off. You appear to back off in the north, moving Belgium into Burgundy, but following Paris into Picardy. So I think Germany probably should have been a little bit worried about that. So Klaus, talk us through this one. This was clearly a strategic realignment for you. But it seemed like one that was designed to keep all of your options open. And so talk us through this. Did you know this bounce was happening in Munich? Were you happy to not advance?
No, I was not happy to not advance, and I did not know the bounce was happening. Okay. Germany outsmarted me there, really. He asked for a bounce in Munich, and I thought, oh, if you want to do a bounce in Munich, then I can just slip into Ruhr, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was just going to self-bounce there with Silesia. I really didn't expect he would.
If you had, would you have supported Ruhr to Munich?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think there was any way for me to predict that. It was just a really smart move. But the reason I switched back into this was because I knew Russia was going to get support from England into Sweden. Or at least I felt pretty confident that was going to happen. I was in on that chat. So I figured, then I should probably pounce on Germany as well, because with a small England as my ally, and if I can just take out Germany real fast, then I'm in a great position for the rest of the game. Got it.
Okay, so you did want pace. And did you guys discuss Klaus going to the English Channel? Jacob, were you? Okay, so you didn't know. So how did you feel about that, Jacob?
I wasn't super happy, but I felt that my saving grace was that I had an army on the island, and I didn't build here, but I had an army on the island. Like, he could get something off of me, but it was going to be a pain. And Germany had like one army defending all their territories. So I was like, maybe he'll be more enticed to go for Germany instead and not take me on yet.
And the decision to support Russia into Sweden here, just talk me through that one.
Yeah, I wanted Russia on my side for sure. And I felt like if I was acting aggressively towards Russia, I kind of had three options, right? I could go with the Western Triple thing, but it was pretty clear that like Jason and Klaus were never really going to fight. So that didn't seem too appealing. And so I was like, I can't really attack Klaus. So the best thing for me to do is to try to get something off of Germany and hope Klaus doesn't run in on me. And I felt this was like the best way of doing that, because then, Russia could support me into Skag and Denmark, and that's what happened.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was a really smart move, actually. Like I said, I was in on the discussion, and Jacob said, hey, I can support you into Sweden now, and if you can help me into Denmark later, then we've got a really good deal.
What's up?
Jacob, it also sounds like your negotiations with Germany didn't really sit well with you. You didn't really form a good working relationship with him. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was complicated. I think on the one hand, I liked that he was moving aggressively towards somebody that wasn't me. On the other hand, I was like, look, if he's openly saying like, I'm going to attack the new player because they're easy to kill, the second newest player, I'm like, all right, dude, we're not going anywhere.
It's a really interesting hazard, right? Of thinking you have a read on other players. Like he misread you. He thought you were more experienced than you were. And he also divulged a bit of his internal logic, which actually it's hard to see how that would have served him, even if you were an experienced player. So
I think that, I honestly, though, I think this was less about Germany and more about France and Russia.
Okay. just the strategic situation of the board. And
My view at this point was like, Klaus like can kill me whenever he wants. Like I was like kind of in his world. I felt like, so I was just like, I'm not gonna anger him and see how long I can stick with it.
Klaus, I see you smiling.
Yeah. No, and I understand what Jacob is saying, and I think he's partially right because of how I was moving, because I constantly had that option of having to jump on him. He had to keep that army on the mainland, and that really slowed him down towards Russia. If he had been able to convoy into Norway earlier, then he would have been able to make a play on St. Petersburg. But because I was holding him back, he was unable to do that, and then Germany seemed like a smarter move.
Okay, great. So Klaus, you bypass the build here as well. I saw in the comments Jason suggested this was an accident. Was it?
No.
He told me it was an accident, but I didn't believe it.
What, did you waive the build here because you just didn't need it for anything?
Look, the logical thing here was to make an army, but I didn't really need an army there. I felt like so I wanted to keep the option open to build a fleet later, but I couldn't build a fleet now because I was working with England.
Klaus, is keeping your options open, is that one of the most important things in diplomacy for you?
Yes, it is, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like if you commit to one thing, then if something goes sour, you're out of options, right? Yes, I like to keep my options open.
But it sounds like you will prioritize strategic and tactical flexibility over tempo, if you need to.
I often do, yeah. I think it's one of my strengths, but also one of my flaws.
Yeah.
Because if you just look at the board, I could have just pounced on Jacob in 1902, and it would have worked out really well for me. But I felt like if I was going to do that, then I would really have to outrace Germany to have a good result.
All right, let's move forward here. So this was another turn that got a fair amount of discussion from us. We wondered we wondered how much you were, Klaus, how much you knew of what was going to happen here. Because again, this was a turn where it seemed like nothing really happened, but all of your tactical and strategic options were still open to you. You really could have projected in either direction.
Yes, that's correct. But I was unhappy about this. I really expected Germany to cover Holland here because I didn't talk to him at all that turn. And if he was indeed covering Holland, then I would have been in perfect position here with the army in Ruhr and the fleet in Belgium. So I actually did expect to sneak into Ruhr there.
Okay, so again, you kept trying to expect to sneak into Ruhr, but why not support either Burgundy into Ruhr or Belgium into Ruhr?
Because I expected Silesia to move to Munich without support, so I wanted to bounce that out. Yeah.
Got it. So you were trying to have everything.
Yes, I was trying to have everything. Yes.
I hated this set of moves from him. I really didn't like it.
Why?
I wanted you to go into Ruhr. I thought it was a pretty sensible move, and then I was just like, okay, well now his fleet's still in the English Channel, and armies aren't even in Germany. It's like, okay.
So you're still worried about him pulling the switchblade out and sticking it into your side?
Yeah, I mean, he moved out of Mao, which was nice, but he's still in the English Channel. And at this point, like, it was clear to everyone in the game. Like I said, I don't remember when it became clear, but at a certain point, it was like Italy and France are not fighting. So.
But so Jacob, this was a really good turn for you. This was a turn where the power balance in the EF shifted, so that you were really no longer the junior partner. By blowing up this fleet and keeping Russia on your side, you gained so much power in the north, right? It became much harder for Klaus to want to move against you, especially having to commit this fleet to the south. Which, Klaus, I assume this was just because you got nervous about Italy getting too powerful and wanted to just slow him down a little bit?
Yeah, mostly that. I tried to arrange a bounce with Jason, actually, because even more I wanted to stay in the Atlantic Ocean, but Jason didn't want to do a bounce.
Oh, is that right? He actually declined it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, his plan was to tell me not to go there at all, but that kind of failed.
Oh, got it. Okay. So he didn't He because if he thinks you're going there, he has to go no matter what, right? Okay.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
right.
But interesting. But this really fits with you wanting a bounce fits with your like desire to keep strategic options open. It's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the single fleet in Western Med isn't gonna gain me anything, right?
Which is why you then put it back in Spain, where it's at least not as scary. Okay, so here, right? So Jacob, again, like not only do you have strategic, tactical positioning that was strong, but here you get 2 builds.
Yeah.
So now you are even with France, which is really a bit ahead for England because you have a better defensive position being in the corner. So how did you feel at this point? Did you feel like, yes, was this a turn where you know, just felt like you had done it?
Definitely. I was feeling pretty good. At the same time, I was still like looking to the next turn. I was like, okay, we can finish off Germany, but then what? You know, I always felt that I still didn't see a way to make it past Germany. You know, I was like, okay, I can get to 7, right? I can get Denmark, Kiel, Holland, Norway, and what I have. Okay, that's 7. But I was like, you know, Klaus isn't attacking Italy. So, and Italy at this point was like at war with Austria, and Klaus was like happy to let him do that. I was like, oh, was this? Yeah, this was. Oh, this was the turn when Austria stabbed Italy. Right. So right after this, I was like, you know, I was happy, but I was also kind of apprehensive about the future.
Because there was a potential counterweight in the south to France that had now been weakened. Is that?
Yeah, partially that. Also because like I knew Italy wasn't going to pick a fight with him.
Yeah. So Jacob, you're at this point, fall of 1903, already thinking about, you're already counting centers and thinking about the board top. Is that what I hear?
I wasn't thinking about the board top. I was just thinking about like, well, I mean, where do I go after Germany? And
okay.
Where do I go after Germany? Where does Klaus go after Germany? And where does Master Plum, who I never learned his real name, Master Plum go after Germany?
Jacob, these are all fantastic instincts. Seriously, I know you're calling yourself a beginner player, but you're not talking or playing like one. So
yeah.
Well, all right.
Yeah, it was really good, and really good convincing me to support you into Holland, because I wasn't super happy with this turn.
Yeah, Klaus, why not? Did you feel like you had lost your advantage at this point?
Yes, I did. I did feel like I lost my advantage, but I didn't really see better options either. I mean, I could have supported myself into Ruhr, but I wasn't sure that was the best thing to do either. Basically, I had waited too long, so I've been playing my strength too much and made it into a weakness. And now suddenly England was on par with me, and I didn't really know what the best way forward was.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's move forward and see how it works out. So in 1904, the EF moves forward, and Germany disappears. Looks like each of you, EF and R, get a piece of it. I had a little question about this, Jacob. Was this arranged or a good guess on Russia's part?
It was arranged because I wanted Klaus to think that I was like still, you know, relatively trusting of him and I'm definitely going to move against Russia next, but I also didn't want to piss off Russia. So I just, I said, let's bounce in Sweden.
And was go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, well done. I did not realize this was arranged, because neither of you told me about it. And in fact, I thought I convinced Russia to protect Sweden.
Okay.
Well, I had told you, I said, oh, yeah, I'm just going to take a stab at Sweden, and it's probably not going to work. And you wanted me to go to St. Petersburg.
Well, I didn't want you to go there. I was just suggesting it.
He suggested that I go to St. Petersburg.
Just threw it out there as an option.
Yeah, well, getting you and Russia fighting would be exactly what he would want at that point.
Yeah.
Was the bounce in Holland arranged, or was this shenanigans?
It was all shenanigans.
Okay. And I actually I skipped over this part, the taking of the English Channel. There was this. Okay, so this was signs of real strife in the EF. Then you guys are
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You're not at war at this point, but you're also eyeing each other warily, and okay.
Yeah, we're jockeying for position, and every time we're like, "I'm not happy about what you did, but okay, let's try and continue to work together."
Yeah.
Which is the kind of thing I would expect from an experienced player.
It's nice to have cordial relations while you're battling against each other. No, it's one of the great things about diplomacy, I think, is that it's this game where you scheme and connive against each other and you lie to each other's faces, and you both see it in your best moments as a battle of wits, purely as a battle of wits. And you can be nice about it, and you probably both saw that you had advantage by being nice to each other, even while you were scheming and conniving and lying. And that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jacob is constantly saying that I would never stab Jason, but I have in every other game I've ever played with him. And you see me move to Piedmont and the other move to Western Met. Yeah, Jason wasn't happy with those moves either. So I was being called into a chat room with him all the time, and he was complaining like, "Why did you do that? Go away!"
I was always on the edge because I never really thought you were gonna fight him, but then you would like do things like that, and I'd be like, maybe it's possible, so I shouldn't piss off, Yeah.
I think stabbing Jason Massbaum just makes you a diplomacy player. All right, let's move to the end of the game. Oh, sorry,
Brandon. I have a question for you, right? Because that move English Channel was kind of spontaneous. It was really, I was just like, I want him out of the English Channel, and I could do it, so I could do it. But in retrospect, or Klaus, you comment too. Do you guys think that was a good move, or would you have done something else?
Do you want to answer first, Klaus?
Yeah, sure. I think it was a good move. Mostly because you got away with it. No, I mean, because I'm not the type of player to immediately turn around and attack you with all my units just because of that move. Some other people do, and then it would have been a bad move. But you correctly assessed that I would not be doing that.
And also, I think, Jacob, what you also correctly assessed was that Klaus wasn't going to attack Italy, and that meant that his units could only be used against you. There's the mopping up of Germany, but after that, so this is a premium location to be, and it's much better for you to be there than for him. So, and this was your last chance to take it. If you did not take it here, you would not have gotten it.
I guess my problem was that he just went to Belgium, and then in 1905 he was in Belgium and then supported himself into Holland. So, or also, if he hadn't been in Belgium, my convoy into Holland would have succeeded. So.
Well, we can move forward now and see what you might have done afterward. But look, English Channel is one of these spaces. There are several of these non-supply center spaces which are worth a lot. North is probably the most valuable on the board. English Channel is right up there, especially when it comes to English-French relations. So taking this just can't be bad. I mean, now your worry was that it gave him more access to Holland. Although he had an army there previously, but it may be that what you should have done here was to take Belgium, right?
Yes.
If you're fighting,
I fully agree.
If you're fighting France, now you can take Belgium and pop this fleet. That would have given you a lot of strategic and positional advantage here.
So you think I support the fleet into Belgium?
In this case, let's see. You could have tapped Picardy, and then used Holland to support the convoy into Belgium.
Then I couldn't take Kiel.
Yeah, but do you need to take Kiel at that point? Is it better to get rid of this French unit or the German one? The other thing you did right by taking the German one is that you moved your army further away from France. So if France is your main adversary at this point, if you view him as your main rival for the board top, then you want to be harming him. Who cares about Germany? Yeah. Do you disagree, Klaus?
No, I fully agree. He should have stabbed me there for Belgium. Yep. This was the moment to take the advantage.
Yep.
So you managed to get yourself into English Channel and get that upper position, but then you didn't capitalize on it.
No.
And I think if you were a really strong diplomat, you would even have convinced Germany that you wouldn't attack Kiel, so he could support hold himself in Munich. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even take that.
Yeah, that would have been killer. If Germany still wants to play, right? If Germany still wants to play.
Yeah, but Germany didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah, so that's the other problem. Right?
Germany actually at this point, you look, he moved to Ruhr in Burgundy, and he was, I guess he realized what you guys were saying. He was like, look, I'm going to cut Ruhr and I'm going to cut Burgundy, and you should take Belgium. And I didn't listen to him.
Oh, he actually brought that up to you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said, you cut Picardy and I'll cut the other two and you take Belgium.
Yeah. Then he definitely could have done it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good offer.
Okay.
Go for into Belgium.
Like I said, learning experience. And I mean, the game ends up being a learning experience for you. Right. So this is, you're in position right here to I think tie for the board top. I think you've lost if Russia's going to attack you in Kiel, then you no longer can have the board top alone, but you could have kept Klaus from taking Holland here. And if you have a lot, especially if you have a confidence this is going to be the last turn, which maybe you didn't, but the tactic here is you tap Belgium, you tap Ruhr, you're going to lose Kiel, which you think you might anyway, but you can guarantee that you keep Holland. And then you've got to guess over whether Sweden's going to go to Norway, but if you think it's going to go to Denmark, then you can just leave St. Petersburg here.
Yeah, I didn't think about the move to Denmark. I defended against the move to Norway.
Oh, you didn't even think about Sweden cutting support here?
Yeah, I mean the time limits are tight, right? So I was like I was like the last bit of time before these moves, I was like, okay, like assuming I was pretty confident that Klaus was gonna try to stab me and get Russia in on it, and I was like, all right, what the hell am I doing here? And I think you guys said on the stream that it was a guessing game, and it kind of was, and I guess wrong, whatever.
But look, Jacob, you went head to head with a world-class player in Klaus de Graaf, and you narrowly missed.
Yeah.
Right? Not only that, you came back from a disastrous fall of 1901 to do that. So you should feel really good about this game.
Yeah, I was patting myself on the back, and honestly, I think if this game goes on to 1907, I'm gonna lose some stuff, but I don't think I was gonna get eliminated, right?
No.
I think my position was decently defensible. I mean, I was gonna lose something, but
well, what you do get to do is decide who tops this board.
That's true. The pitch I was making, point if it had continued, was I was saying to Russia, I was like, look, Klaus is gonna go against me, but he's also gonna take Kiel and Berlin, and then move against you. And I was like I stabbed you, I screwed up. Let's call it a day. I don't know. Maybe it would have worked, but
I'm sorry. I take that back. I take that back. Klaus will top this board no matter what. He's in the North Sea. I forgot about that. Yep.
And Kiel is undefended. Berlin is undefended.
Yeah. And London, you should be able to get. I think. No, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose North, but you're gonna get at least one, if not two, of these guys up here. The question is what happens in the East, but the East is a mess at this point. So yeah, I'm sorry. Klaus de Graaf will definitely top this board. That's why you took the yeah. What did you guys care about the board top? Was that the consensus on the board that people were playing for the board top?
I don't think anyone else. Well, some other people were, but I was playing for the board top. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, without a scoring system, it's unclear what you're doing.
Well, I think I read that we were playing C Diplo, but I'm not entirely sure because I arrived 15 minutes after this game was supposed to start, and then I saw on my phone that we were playing, and I'm like, okay, I can join if you need me, and they needed me. So,
well, Klaus, thanks for joining. You not only saved the day, but you won the day. So congratulations.
Yes, definitely.
Jacob, any parting thoughts on this, your first face-to-face game?
It was tough. It was really, the time management is difficult, and you kind of want to talk to everybody, but you really couldn't. And especially towards I stopped paying attention to the East after 1901 or 2.
Well, you kept tabs on Italy, which ended up being the thing that mattered for you.
I think I talked to him in spring 1901. I don't know that I ever talked to him after that.
Oh yeah, but you were watching. That's what's important. All right. Well, Jacob, we hope to see you again on a future board and definitely again on the live stream. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Klaas de Graaf, any final words from you?
No, I completely agree with Jacob that a live game is very stressful and it's very there's not much time. I mean, this final move here of Russia to Kiel, I had like 2 minutes left on the clock to convince him of it, and he didn't see it himself, so I had to explain to him. Send Berlin to Kiel, Sweden to Denmark. Come on, there's only 2 minutes left. Quick, do your orders. But it does get a lot better. The more you try it, the more experience you get. The more time you have. It also makes it more natural and easier. I was paying attention to the East all the time, of course. I was constantly trying to keep them at some kind of balance.
Well, if
I wanted to pay attention to him, but I was like too wrapped up in, trying to figure out what to do on my side. So,
I talk to almost everyone every turn.
Yeah,
Jacob, that'll come as you play face-to-face games more often. You'll be able to think more quickly and prioritize what it is you need to figure out.
Yeah.
And so we have a face-to-face tournament coming up. The Liberty Cup is run out of Philadelphia. That takes place on August 1st. It's a one-day tournament. And at the end of August and the beginning of September, we have a 2-weekend tournament, which is run by the club that I help run, the Chicago Windy City Weasels. So we're going to have it's going to be 2 Saturdays in a row, 2 rounds, one each day. And then we'll have a top board qualifying after those 2 qualifying rounds on Sunday, September 6th. So I hope to see you guys in those games if you're able to play. And I want to thank you for joining us on the live stream today.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, you guys.
Have a good night.
And I'm going to bring back Ed Sullivan, our Go Horns Go analyst, and David Hood, who is a Tar Heel, I believe, correct?
Oh, yes. Of course. What else could you be?
From North Carolina, obviously.
Mac Brown, yeah, well, you have Mac Brown.
Yep. So, all right, we'll turn back to game 1 in a second. Do you guys have any? I could see you guys paying attention to most of those interviews. Do you have any thoughts on what those guys had to say?
I thought Jacob was a delightful person to listen to, and I think he's got a bright future. And he should have realized that Klaus is from Holland, and you always want to end up in your home country on diplomacy if it's on the map. So that was going to happen.
Great. And David?
Yeah, the same. And of course, Klaus, his comments showed us how good of a player he is. He was on top of things, and I was pleased with his result. And I was pleased with the way Jacob played until the end there when he did make a boo-boo. But goodness, how many? All of us are going to do that. Not only when we're new to the game, but when we're not new to the game, we're going to make mistakes under the pressure cooker 15-minute type arrangement.
Well, and for a new player to come back from the early miscue and to hold his own against a player of Klaus's caliber is really impressive. So he should feel really good about that.
Yep.
All right, let us go back to board number 1, which we left in winter of 2004, which saw another EF having a lot of success. This one with Doc Binder in England and Bjorn Borg in France.
The misbuilds by England.
And that's right. We had some missing builds by Doc. I did not get any intel on that, I don't think. So maybe after the game, we'll be able to find out about that. Richard in Russia was feeling the brunt of the attack from England. And this was where Austria got Venice and seemed to be doing okay. And then there was still the messiness between the RIT. Okay, let us push forward here. And this was board 1. So spring goes to Ed. Tell us what you see.
Okay, so the bounce in the channel. So, but you see Western Med going to MAO. So it looks like France has decided to break up the partnership, so to speak. That's definitely, you can tell there's a bounce in Kiel. Munich takes a stab at Berlin. I guess he thought maybe Denmark would support Berlin to Kiel. That's the point of that. let's see, Doc Bender and England still, I guess, fighting with Russia a little bit in the north, but it's a mess. The Balkans are still a mess, where nothing happens ever in this board game, this particular board game in the Balkans. It seems like this is what we've said every turn.
It's interesting how both games sort of follow a similar pattern, isn't it? Kind of wonder
here's another similar pattern. Why in the heck would you not support yourself to Ruhr in this situation?
or at least go to Ruhr.
Or at least go to Ruhr, but by gosh, no, that's right. You don't have to support yourself. At least go to Ruhr from Berg. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, where's the position for the fall? That's where it counts, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a mistake. I'm sure France is looking back on this now, thinking, man, I really should have gone to Ruhr there.
Yeah, there's really no reason. I mean, this I think is quite clever, moving to Kiel and Berlin to keep either, take one of them or keep England out. But there's no reason for Burgundy not to go to Ruhr. There's nothing to stop it. And then Paris to follow up into Burgundy. And now you can see that there's some hamstringing with Warsaw and Silesia. Although, again, I don't know why Russia wants to be in Silesia here or unless he expected Austria to be moving to
Silesia is the coolest place on the board. Just ask every Russian player that's been playing today. It's the coolest place on the board ever. But the other thing I would say about this turn is nature abhors a vacuum.
Oh.
And England not building created a vacuum.
Yep.
And there's just a giant sucking sound of sucking French units towards you when you don't build it. And that's really what's happening here. And it should have happened. This was exactly the right thing, I think, for the French to do. I just wish they'd done it a little better tactically.
And what to do with Norwegian here is interesting. I mean, I suppose Doc probably figured he really couldn't vacate. Like you might think that he might have moved it to North Atlantic here, but then that might invite Barents to pop out. He does not need Norwegian for the defense of St. Petersburg, but he also doesn't want to give Russia the idea that he can break out of the Barents prison here. All right, let's move forward into fall of 1905. And David.
Well, it does go back now. Well, look at him slipping into Holland. Look at that. Look at Doc.
Oh.
France did move to Ruhr.
Oh, my goodness. He did. He did a little bit a day late and a dollar short, as they say.
Wow.
I think this might be the French having been convinced by Doc that, you know what, you didn't do anything to me last turn, so why don't we just let bygones be bygones, with Doc secretly thinking, yes, you're going to be gone.
Wow.
And there we go.
This is just wow, right?
Yeah, and that's just the only way that's the only thing you can say about that. I mean, the French are deploying as far east as they can. They're actually in the bloody Ionian at this point. And here come the English into Holland. And remember, the English, not on purpose, I don't think, had a bunch of builds in the bag.
Yeah.
So they're getting ready to put a bunch of guys down. And look how many red lines you still got in the east. So the east is still the proverbial mess.
Bjorn Borg is acting like the actual French army.
That's a good point. Although listen, he's moving towards the front. Look, he's going to Silesia. Because everybody loves Silesia. It's awesome. It's the coolest.
Well, the last time the French went to Silesia and then to Moscow, it didn't really work out for him.
Well, that's a valid point you're making. And once he gets to Silesia, there's nobody in Munich. It's like, wait a minute, what am I doing here again? It's a really interesting situation.
They've gone into Silesia as winter dawns. Which is the problem.
Hopefully the Cossacks do not destroy their supply lines during the winter.
I tried to goad David into a little bit of Francophobia earlier, and I'm glad to see that we got it eventually.
I am a Francophile, though.
Oh.
I mean, except for
I am too. I am actually, and actually, France is my favorite power to play in diplomacy anyway. So there you go.
But not a lot of love for France's military exploits, which have at times been impressive.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, if you ever want anything done, then call in the French Foreign Legion, for goodness sake. Wait, that's because none of them are French. So let's move on to the next turn.
I will say this: we are often as analysts at a disadvantage because we don't hear the negotiations. We don't have a lot of insight into negotiations. It's often difficult to see what people are accomplishing in negotiations. This is a turn where we don't have any problem. I think there's no other interpretation for this other than a diplomatic coup by Doc Bender, convincing the French to go move units away while he moves units in behind them.
And I can just hear him. I can hear his words in his basso profundo, deep bass voice, so persuasive to the French. And boy, did it work!
He has 4 builds, if I'm not mistaken.
What's the 3? Definitely.
All right. I thought he had 2. Yeah, you might. Yeah, I can't remember.
He had 2.
He already owns. Yeah, I think he already owns Kiel. That's the one you're
That's
thinking.
correct. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
That's right. Interesting set of moves here, though. He must have been guessing that Holland would be supported into Kiel by Munich. Otherwise, I think you'd rather not leave Berlin open. But either way, I mean, now Denmark goes to Baltic, and you've got pretty nice positioning here. Okay, let us see what Doc plopped down. Little surprise, actually, to see an army in Liverpool. But we've got and even the army in Edinburgh, it's not clear that there's a whole lot to do with that unless he moves Holland and then wants to convoy it over.
They must have made peace, honestly.
You think? Which they could have done during the negotiation period or during the build period, because they can negotiate. Okay, well, and we have Marseille coming off the board, which is interesting. Might have thought Silesia if I was going to have to choose.
No, Silesia's the coolest place on the board.
Yeah,
He would
that's
never
true.
leave there voluntarily. Never, ever.
Yeah, France is in a bind here because he's committed to now taking some Italian dots. So he really can't pull Ionian, even though, well, so West maybe, but then he's got to protect. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward here. Spring 1906. Ed, you are up.
France takes Rome. Looks like I can't tell with Austrian support or not. Naples,
yeah,
convoy to Albania. French help. I'm sure French was more than happy to make that convoy there.
And Rome retreats to Apulia, not to Naples, which is now open.
Okay, good to know. Going back, I mean, I'm just sort of looking here really quickly, and then I know it's not great television. Looking back, it just looks like England is advancing position, but France isn't really attacking. So I'm wondering what's going on between right now. Maybe it's a fall move, but anyways, England's got great position. Can go wherever he wants to up there.
Yeah, David, kind of looks like you were right. Doc kept the negotiating prowess going in that negotiation.
And I actually like Doc's move there, or diplomatic move there. I mean, why not patch things up with the French? They've got such an advanced position in the Med that when you're going east against what's already a freaking mess, now if you've got the French back on your side, but you've got the upper hand with them, you sort of got the French doing your dirty work in the Med, keeping everybody off balance down there while you plow east. I like it, and I think it's a good move.
But why wouldn't you go to English Channel here? I mean, you've got the advantage over the French. Why wouldn't you push it? I mean,
because I think he's going to continue to have the advantage over the French. So, I mean,
well, not if France is getting builds here.
Where is he getting a build from? Rome,
Rome, and likely Naples.
Well, I guess that's a good point. A lot of it also depends on exactly what you're playing for. Doc is an old-time player like me. He probably is trying to actually win the game, even if the time limit's going to keep him from doing it, or getting as close as he can. So maybe that's what he's thinking in terms of the stalemate line. I'm not sure.
And by win you mean what the youth call solo, correct?
What young people call solos. That's right. Yeah. Actually, I was years ago. I was at a tournament, and somebody said a one-way, and I said a what? And they said a one-way. I said, no, you mean a solo win? Yeah, a one-way draw. No, it's not. That's a one-way. That's a win. But no, it's hard to know exactly. But maybe Doc just wanted to go get everything he wanted in the East. Maybe he has enjoyed playing with the French. Doc's perfectly capable of thinking that way. He's really enjoyed playing with the French player and wants to keep doing it because this is a game that's just for fun anyway.
I mean, I presume he'll take Moscow. I mean, in 07. So, it's going to be what? I don't know. I'd like to see where England's going to take a dot off France. You guys suggest he won't. So
Well, I mean, I don't think he's planning to do it right this minute. No, because otherwise, as Brandon says, he would have gone to English Channel and done some other things. He would have taken several, tried to take at least a dot doing that, or at least get in position. He's clearly decided not to do that for whatever reason, and
Yep.
3 movements left.
If he thinks that he can slip into Belgium here without support,
Right.
I mean, why not? Why not?
He slipped into Holland with nobody paying attention. So
yeah. So I mean, we're gonna get to hear from France directly. So I'm really interested to hear how France's perspective on these negotiations. Especially now if France has been able to negotiate his way back into into a solid defensive position. Well done, right? So let's
look at him coordinating with the Austrians on Warsaw. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on here.
Yeah, and the Italians against Austria, right? Like, talk about playing multiple sides here.
Yep, that should be a good interview.
All right. Well, we've got fall of 1906, and this goes to David Hood.
France continues pushing as far east as France can really go in the fall of 1906.
Eastern Mediterranean.
Galicia and Bohemia and Burgundy. The only cool place he's not in is Silesia, by the way. And he's got Silesia surrounded by 3 armies.
My God.
Yeah, this is just complete EF domination, and maybe Doc just was enjoying this alliance and wanted to stick with it. That's the only thing I can come up with here.
But I tell you what, in terms of soloing, France is the one with.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think I take back what I said earlier. If Doc was thinking about trying to push for a solo, he hasn't done that correctly. But look at Turanian Sea to the Naples, as you said earlier, Brandon. This is just complete and utter destruction of the East by the Western Alliance. This is the kind of game that in the old days you would have seen more often. Where you just get an alliance and you just destroy the other side of the board. And then, in 1909 or 1910, either England or France stabs for the win, depending on which one gets the jump on the other. And that's the way, and I do mean 18 center win there. That's the way games used to be played before we started having scoring systems that relied upon being a board top actually meaning something, which didn't used to mean anything. Got it. At least not very much. It used to mean not very much.
Yeah, maybe as a tiebreaker in a draw-based system, something like that.
Yes. Should be a good 07. It's 10-10. I mean, France can.
Yes, I mean, well done, France. Like,
absolutely, yes.
Well done, Doc Binder. We gave him a lot of credit for an apparent diplomatic coup in the previous year. And I mean, France's recovery from that, apparently through diplomatic means, not just with England and a world-class player in Doc Binder, but with 2 other powers in the East, is at least as good, if not better. Yeah.
They may agree not to care about board top and finish 12-12.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a good point. And Doc's the kind of guy that would have said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun."
And in the absence of a scoring system, even for a single, a lot of people think scoring systems are only useful for when you have multiple games in series. But from my perspective, it's sensible even for a single game because it defines the secondary objectives if a solo
totally
isn't possible.
I could not agree with you more on that, Brandon.
But in this case, no matter what the secondary objectives could be, France's play is it's just hard not to like it.
Yes.
All right.
Anytime the French or the Eastern Med and Galicia earlier, you must be doing, and nobody's in your home country. Yeah. You must be doing something right.
Munich, Bohemia. I mean, look, you can just see the claw, right? Let's get the sense of this right. The claw is just right there. Munich, Bohemia, Galicia on top, Naples, Ionian, and Eastern Med on the bottom, just ready to clamp down.
Or you could perceive it as Pac-Man.
I like it.
There you go. All right, let's do spring 1907. Ed Sullivan.
Okay. France gets into the Adriatic, pulls back to put pressure on Austria, moves the units around. It looks very good. Meanwhile, England advances in the northeast to Moscow. And so England will definitely get to 12 because Warsaw's in the sights. France takes Vienna, probably taking Venice. I'm liking my 12-12 prediction, fellas.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, this is just devastating alliance play after the fighting interlude. They have gone back to the main event.
And I'll see if I can get Doc may have gone off. I'll see if I can get it'd be interesting to have E and F on together.
It might be past Doc's bedtime here. It's 7 p.m. on the East Coast.
So, all right. Bohemia getting into Vienna, negotiated or
Happy circumstance would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't think that you can. I don't think it's negotiated. I don't think Austria could defend all the spots that were being attacked.
Yeah, but I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to accomplish with the daisy chain of moves that he was doing there. That none of them worked. I think there could have been some more creative things to do there.
Could have done a mutual bounce in Vienna with Tyrolia and Trieste, right? That would have solved.
That's certainly one thing. He's certainly one thing he could have done. Yes.
And Warsaw supporting St. Petersburg into Moscow. Like Austria is just kind of like, screw all you.
Yeah.
What do you think about France not taking a G in here and instead cycling the fleets up into the Adriatic?
Might be better from a short-term perspective. To what he did might be better short-term, putting additional pressure on the Austrian centers he's trying to take. Aegean is better in the long term from a positional point of view, but in the short term, give me a center point of view. Adriatic might, and given the time limit, that might be a better way to think about it.
I think it is better in like that there's only one more move, right? So what's the easier chance?
Well, I guess the theory is that if all the players agreed, you could play past 07 or something like that. But
yeah, but
it's hard to imagine some of these guys wanting to do that.
Yeah, there's a reason why that's not the regular rule. But I mean, in this case, I think even there's no reason to leave the Eastern Med, send Ione into the Adriatic, and support Naples down.
Well, unless you're worried about the Turks slipping in there somehow.
Well, yeah, but Eastern Med could support Naples into the Ionian.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I guess he's going to go to Apulia to have yet another unit to help take Venice with.
But to be clear, like if you're going for the solo, you want Ionian to be supported to the Aegean here, and you worry about these centers later, right?
Yes, if you were going to continue to play, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then if you're France, are you worried about the convoy to Holland here?
I think they'll mutually agree to bounce in Belgium.
Although England can support.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's got the 2-on-1. Oh,
yeah.
We'll see if Doc does care about the board top here.
I know.
Everything. The love story will be over.
We have a little drama here. Yeah, I think if you're France, you want to see this going to Norway here, right? Or to Denmark if if he really wants it closer. But this is a gorgeous position for England. All of these let's look at this chain of armies here.
Yeah.
So
and you've got a chain of fleets to do convoys to the front if you wanted. I mean, if this game were continuing, it would be fascinating. And again, something that we would have seen a lot of in 1996 or something. Fascinating to see whether England or France would have ended up soloing here.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, we were sort of saying that the balance sort of felt like it was tipping towards France, and it may still be actually, although with the retreat from Eastern Med may actually be a too big of a sacrifice of positioning there. But it does kind of feel like you've got the two big powers who are like, we're just going to go right up to the edge. It's going to be an unstable equilibrium, and then one of us is going to tip over and get the 18.
If the game was continuing, as you pointed out, Brandon, I don't think he would have given up on the supported attack on the Aegean if the game were continuing.
Yeah. Okay, let's move into fall 1907 here.
Yes, he did. Yeah, but look who took Trieste, though.
Yeah, and Venice and Budapest.
Oh my God!
And I think they tie. I think they're at 13-13.
Austria picks up. I'm sorry. I said Austria. I meant to say France, but they're the same thing now at this point. Same thing. Yeah. France picks up all 4 of Austria's dots in 1 year.
Good. Googly.
So France picks up 3. England also picks up 3. Warsaw, Moscow, and Belgium. So you're right. They do finish tied at 13. So you were prescient, Ed. You just got the number wrong.
You were just selling them short, Ed. You were selling them short.
Well, I do what I can.
Wow. All right. Well, we're definitely going to hear from France, trying to get France and England together. Right now, we have ready to join us are Tahsin from Turkey, who I believe played in Boston, and also Seren, who was playing in Italy. Do you guys want to take another break and then hop back on?
I need to take a break anyway, so that'd be fine.
I need to take a break. I actually need to sign off if that's okay, Brandon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's been really, really great having you on the stream.
I appreciate it. David, nice to see you in person.
Yes, Ed, same to you. Same to you.
Ed, before you go, is there anything you want to plug, a podcast or anything like that?
I have nothing to plug. I mean, you can search for Nexus Diplomacy on YouTube. You'll find our podcast, but you guys do such great work here. It's a pleasure being on.
All right. Next time you'll have something to plug. We'll work.
Yeah. I mean, what do I care? Thanks, guys.
All right, Ed. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
All right. And David, are you signing off, or are you going to come back for some closing comments later on?
I'm probably I'll sign off for now. I'll let you know later if I can come back.
All right. David, thank you so much for joining us. It was great having you again. We'll see you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Joining me now from Boston, I believe, is Tahsin, who played Turkey. Hey, Tahsin. Welcome to the stream.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. I'm actually from New York. I remember that in the original live stream you said I'm from Boston, but
All right, so we got that wrong. Just bad. Just bad.
That's good. It's good.
And am I saying your name correctly?
Yep, Tahsin. Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. All right, and joining us is Seren. Hey, Seren, welcome to the live stream.
Hello.
Hey, am I saying your name correct? Well, this is your handle. I should ask you what your real name is.
Yeah, it's my handle. I just go by Seren just because it's easier than my real name. So.
Okay. And Seren, where are you joining us from?
I'm in England at the moment.
Nice. Where in England?
Surrey, near Heathrow Airport. If you know where that is.
Okay. So not too far from London then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And so Seren, I'm sorry, Seren, I said that right this time.
Yep,
yeah,
that's right.
Okay. Seren, you were playing Italy, correct?
Yeah.
And Tahsin, you were playing Turkey.
Yep.
So I'm curious to know. Obviously the result probably didn't end up the way you guys wanted it to from the at the end. But tell me about the beginning of the game. What were things like in the East?
Well, should I start or do you want to start, Seren?
I don't mind. You go ahead.
So I obviously reached out to Austria and Russia. My plan was to gauge, who's going to be trustworthy. Austria seemed nice, but she was a new player, so I didn't know what she was going to do. Russia seemed vague, so I was immediately my alarm bells were ringing. And me and Italy talked, and I had a feeling that Italy's going to work with Austria too. So I was kind of in a desperate situation. The moves were pretty standard at first, but then if you can see, in later on, I think in 1902, Austria messes up. There we go. Austria, even though she pretty much had Russia on her side, she moved into Galicia by mistake. I don't know if Germany. Also, another thing we found out was that Germany and Austria were they lived together, so maybe they were coordinating or something.
Oh, so, wow, that was.
Yes.
You could hear them both on the other person's microphone.
So that was a golden moment for me because as you can see, Italy moved against me too, which was a good strategy. But because Russia got screwed over by Austria, he definitely decided to join my side. So that's kind of what saved me in the game. Italy, do you want to take over from there?
Yeah, no, my strategy was pretty simple. I wanted to get Austria and Russia on board and just kill Turkey, do it as quickly as possible, and then Russia and I kill Austria. But that didn't quite work out.
Seren, so I should have asked both of you guys, what is your diplomacy background? How long have you been playing, and where do you normally play?
I've been playing diplomacy for close to 4 years, around that. And I've always played online on mostly on web diplomacy, also on play diplomacy. Boston Massacre was the first time I played, against serious players. I played face to face with my friends before, but it's like they didn't really know the rules, and like they kind of messed up a lot. So like this is like the last 3 games since Boston Massacre has been the most like serious online face to face kind of diplomacy game I've ever had. Yeah.
Okay, and Saren, what's your experience?
I played for 1 month on Backstabber.
Oh, nice. You just found Backstabber and started playing, and
yeah, pretty much. And like I've gotten addicted to it in 1 month. So like I spend like so much time reading about diplomacy now. I'm playing it. I just can't stop.
Oh, fantastic. What is it about it that caught you?
Like I played like the Game of Thrones board game a few years ago, but like I was very annoyed with like how unbalanced it was. And like I realized that diplomacy was just like a better version of it. Well, I mean, it was the original, so then I just started playing diplomacy.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, I've played that before. It has some really strange mechanics that you must feel like diplomacy just does better.
It has one faction that's basically Austria, but even weaker, with a faction next to it that can just like outright steamroll the Austria. So,
but when you played Game of Thrones, did you play it like with a lot of negotiation, where you make alliances and stuff, or?
No, like the extent of press was limited to like one line being like alliance, okay, yes.
Oh, it was online. Got it. Not in person. Yeah. Okay. So is it the negotiation the thing that you like most about diplomacy, or is it more the tactics?
I think it's the negotiation. Like I do like press a lot more than gunboat.
Okay, so you came into this game. So it sounds like you had a plan from the beginning, which was to form the 3-way alliance to take out Turkey, and then you were also thinking even further ahead, like what happens after Turkey's gone? We're going to take out Austria. So
yeah. Sorry, a few days ago, I GM'd a game with the Russian player. So like I saw him play and I knew he could be like relied upon as someone who would like not do crazy things. So I wanted to ally him from the beginning.
Okay. So what happened? So when did you, so clearly something changed here because you did not use your units to support Austria or help Russia. So talk us through your reasoning this turn.
So at this point, I wanted to backstab Austria because like the Lepanto wasn't going anywhere, but I wanted the army in Tunis to go into Greece. I wanted to take it with an army, but Turkey wanted me to take it with a fleet, so we stalled in negotiations. And just as we were running out of time, Germany got me and Austria into a 3-way chat, if I remember correctly, and said, okay, you guys can work together and this is how you can do it. So like in the end, I was like, okay, I think that sounds like a reasonable plan. So like I ended up doing it. And Austria would have gotten into Romania here and we would have made progress if Austria had not misordered and forgot to support from Serbia. Yeah. So I think strategically it was a sound plan, but I'm not sure.
So all right, so the failure to order Serbia was just a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disappointing.
Were you sad to not be able to stab Austria? Here.
Yeah. Like I didn't want to stab Austria while Turkey was still strong because I thought that Russia and Turkey would come for me next. And I think after talking with some of the players afterwards, I made some poor reads then, and I should have stabbed Austria but I didn't. So.
Oh, you think you should have followed through with the stab here?
I think I should have followed through with it. Like, I mean, things couldn't be worse than where they ended up, right?
So, okay, so then. Yeah, tell us about, let's move forward a little bit here. And Tassine, at this point, you're just hoping to stay alive?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't much I could do. Like, Austria got into, like, a big blob. Like, there was no chinks in its armor.
Yeah.
And, like, I was desperately trying to convince Italy, listen, I'm going to be on your side. It doesn't matter. You attack me. I'm going to work with you. Let's backstab Austria. You're going to get centers back. And I was also trying to convince Italy to go meet France, and this was what I was telling her. From her game, she played a really good game technically, except I feel like she probably should have had a stronger response to France coming into Piedmont. But like the thing is, Germany was kind of dominating the negotiations, so we couldn't really talk as much, and like he kept convincing her to keep on attacking me. So that's what kind of messed it up. I think at this point, if Italy moved westward and I managed to get into Aegean, I think Austria would have been in more of a trouble than what ended up happening. Because once Italy fell, France just it was a free pass for France.
So Saren, tell us what happened here. Was Trieste going to Venice? Was that something you wanted Austria to do? Were you?
So my original plan was to just hold in Venice because I thought Tuscany to Venice was the most likely move in anticipating Venice to Rome. And then Germany again got me and Austria in a 3-way chat. And okay, Italy, you move down to Rome. Trieste moves into Venice. Everybody wins because he doesn't think that France will hold in Tuscany. And so I signed off to the plan and I lost the supply center.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Well,
which is that Germany screwed everything up.
No, I shouldn't say that because like he was very helpful and like I think it was a sound plan like and we just got unlucky. But at this point, Germany was already like he'd already given up and was acting at like as France's Janissary. So like I think he just wanted to have some sort of influence in the game, and he did it through me and Austria.
And also to speak, about Russia, like I feel like this England-France victory or draw could have been avoided if Russia worked with Germany earlier on. Russia was a great ally, like, and he played, pretty, nice in the south. But with Germany, I feel like if he helped Germany out, I feel like they could have done a lot more to keep, France and England at bay. That's also like, one thing that, caused the England-France thing to work out.
Yeah, Tassin, do you think there's anything you could have done differently this game?
Like we talked about this with France. Like, yeah, I mean, I could have moved into the Black Sea, as you can see over there, like many times over. And Russia would have been in trouble. But the thing is, I realized that at this point, it's going to be really difficult for us to take Austria out since Italy was gone already. I already had so much goodwill with Russia. I just thought that it's not, worth it to burn that bridge. So, we both decided because Russia could have, backstabbed me several times too. You'll see. He had a lot of opportunities, but he chose not to. We just decided that, we have some goodwill. Well, we trust each other. Let's just keep this going. And let's just play as kingmaker. Let's just play not to be last. That's what we decided. But if you have any more comments, I'd love to, I'd love to learn from it.
It's tough. You were in a situation where the other side of the board was resolving in a way that you really couldn't do a whole lot about. If you'd been able to somehow get a jump earlier and start growing, you might be able to keep up with them. But you're identifying Russia's not supporting Germany early is really right. So I think this is a moment that you're probably thinking about where Russia could have supported Germany or taken Norway. Like either one of these would have been effective at slowing down EF, certainly slowing down E, and then possibly causing a different, some sort of conflict between E and F.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's hard. I mean, look, I can tell you that the most important thing in improving as a diplomacy player is to ask yourself, to look to your own play for figuring out what determined, what could have been done differently about your result. What could have made your result come out differently. So players who simply blame other people for their poor results and find reasons to forgive their own play, those are the people who tend not to get better. The people who get better quickly are the ones who say, what could I have done differently?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I wasn't blaming anyone at all for my poor results. I was just trying to give more context. Like, I feel like the game wouldn't have been lost to England or France, but I think I definitely see places where I could have improved.
I want to compliment you on. I heard you saying that this is something that what I heard you doing was identifying what happened on the other side of the board that limited your options. That's really good. And with Saren, it was cool to hear you just now decline to blame Germany, right? Like what I heard you saying was Germany came to me with these options and I chose to follow the wrong one. Like you're the one taking responsibility for that, even if Germany is the one who came up with the ideas that led you astray. But it sounds like you're still looking to yourself for for the answer as to who made the decision.
What do you think I could have done differently this game?
Oh gosh,
Everything.
It's this is a game where I think I think a couple things. So, but I think so. Both of you guys, for you to have had a significantly different result, you needed to see early on that E and F were winning the West, that the West was resolving in a way that was going to be a problem for you. And E and F, so what that means is that the West is resolving, first of all, and also that the two coming out of the West are not going to fight each other. They're much more likely to project their power against you than against each other, which means that you need to react immediately. The East needs to get on the same page and fight the West. So whatever you guys could have done, there's two ways that could have happened. Either all four powers in the West stop fighting and unite against all four powers in the East stop fighting and unite against the West, which is very hard to do, right? That's the hardest path. And that also means that Turkey has to basically sit there and do nothing until the other three in the East can react against the West. The alternative would be for the East, for three of the powers in the East to figure out which one they can get rid of and attack that power and get their dots and use them to build units against the E and F coming out of the West. And I think so. That would be the strategy of here, you and Turkey getting on the same page, you taking Turkey's offer to attack Greece. And so you guys take out Austria quickly, and then the three of you, Russia, Turkey, and Italy, unite against France and England. Those would be my two sort of best options. But ultimately, right, you're still looking at your best result at that point is like a 5-way draw. Unless you can get England and France to start fighting, your odds of getting a board top, I think, are pretty low at that point. And that's just because the West resolved more quickly than the East did.
Do you have anything, any advice you could give me as well on, where I could have improved?
So Turkey is a power that often has to wait for its opportunities. It depends on the opportunities coming from the rest of the board. It's harder to create the opportunities as Turkey. In this case, I think your options were largely limited. If you could have convinced Russia to support Germany and try to keep the West messier early on, I mean that would be the best, right? So then that's about diplomatic options. You see really quickly that there's a problem in the West, and you figure out what you can do diplomatically to affect it.
Yeah, fair enough.
No,
that's all. And also, I feel like everyone played a good game. I feel bad for Italy. Like, she had a good plan. It just didn't work out because when you, it's not Austria's fault. It was I think it was her first ever game on this side, and she, I think, never played diplomacy before, or did she? I'm not sure, but she was a very new player basically. So it's it was obviously very difficult coordinating with her. I think
you're talking about Austria, not Italy.
I'm talking about Austria and Italy working together. Italy had a lot of frustrations because Austria was a new player. So I think if they could have coordinated better, I think I would have been out of the game very early on. So I can't blame her for that. It was a good plan, but it just didn't work out because of luck.
Yeah, this was tough. This turn, I think both of these two turns, these are places where the Austria-Italy alliance just didn't work optimally, right? So yeah, this would have been another place. If you could have taken Bulgaria here, and Austria could have taken Romania. This is then what you need. I mean, Saren, what you need were builds, so. But look, you guys, I mean, this game is hard and you're both getting started, and a lot of this game was out of your control. I mean, I hope you feel good about it, and I hope you're willing to come back and play some more.
Yeah, for sure. It was great. And Brandon, thank you for spending so much time, commentating over this along with other hosts. I actually played with Ed in Boston Massacre.
Okay.
He's a really good player. Yeah, it was really fun. He actually destroyed me. I was England, he was Germany in Boston Massacre. He destroyed me in that game, but it was still very fun, and it was a good learning experience. And we also got to play with Dog Binder. He played masterfully, honestly.
He's
Um,
he's a former world champion. He's a very good player.
Yeah, that we started out the game with him telling us, "Oh yeah, the last time I played was in 1976, before you guys were born, and I haven't played since." And we were like, "Oh yeah, he's probably an old man. He
Yeah.
doesn't know much, right?" And he like destroyed everyone. It was like
He-
amazing.
He is an old man, but he's played a lot more recently. Than
Yeah,
Saren,
he's very good.
Saren, how? So this is this is your first face-to-face game ever,
Yes.
and
It is.
so just briefly, how was the experience for you in terms of like the intensity of it and your ability to stay on top of things?
I felt like I never had enough time to talk to everyone
Yeah.
that I wanted to talk to, and like by the end it was okay because like me and Turkey and Russia were basically all allied, like never thought of stabbing each other for the last 2 years because there was no point. So we were just like doing our own thing, and it was really nice. But at the start it was like, who do I trust? What do I do?
It looked like you had some fun here at the end, like convoying on the French fleet over to Albania. So, well, listen, we've got some more face-to-face events coming up. There is Liberty Cup, which is a one-day tournament on August 1st. And then there's something called the Weasel Moot, which is Chicago's tournament, which will be a 2-weekend event. And you don't have to play both weekends. You can just play one game if you want, or you can play in both games and then try to make it to the top board. But we'd love to see both of you guys there. It's been a real pleasure.
I'll probably be there. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Also special thanks to Hunter for like GMing this and arranging this. Yeah, he's a great guy. Like it was a really nice tournament and a really nice game at least. Yeah.
Tassine, it's been great talking to you. You have a great
You
night.
as well, Brandon. Thank you.
Saren, it's been great talking to you, and thanks for coming on the stream.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, you guys have a great night. All right, and then finally, we are going to bring on someone who's going to have to tell me how to say his name because I haven't been able to. We've been calling him Bjorn Borg. He was playing France in this game and tied for the board top. Welcome to the stream.
Hey there. I just go by Borg for short. It's
Borg.
Borg, yeah.
Awesome, Borg. And tell us where you are joining us from.
So I'm from the GTA, Toronto area.
Okay. And how long have you been playing Diplomacy?
Since about 2011. Started in high school. People were playing on PlayDep. I liked it. The map was pretty. And so, yeah, ever since I've been playing.
Have you played face-to-face before or only online?
Not like hardcore face-to-face games, not like tourney games. Just kind of, high school friends, uni friends. Most of it's online. So I'm used to like 2-day deadlines. I'm used to like, just essays being exchanged.
Yeah, that's different, isn't it?
Yeah, well, so this was pretty, we had some kind of newer players and it wasn't as cutthroat as I expect most face-to-face games to be. Doc, I don't know if he's going to be able to join us or not, but he was definitely like, he was pretty stern and, he'd say something to you and like, that's what he wanted to get done. And that's kind of what I expect from a face-to-face player.
Okay.
So, but on this board, he was the only one who was kind of like that. Everyone else was pretty chill.
Doc has been around for a long time. I've played with him. I've met him a couple times. And he's a former world champion. He definitely knows what he's doing. And it sounds like that came through loud and clear to you. So tell us what it was like. Tell us what the early years were like.
So right early at the start, I talked to Germany first. Germany basically, FG can't really cooperate that hardcore like from spring. So kind of what we negotiated is we negotiated bounce in Burgundy and figuring out the rest in fall basically. And I had those orders entered. That was the plan. England came to me and he proposed a more aggressive move. He proposed that I take Burgundy, and he also said that he'd let me into Belgium. And I thought that was interesting. I kind of pressed him on that, and he seemed like he was legit about making that happen. So I went ahead with kind of the more aggressive move that opened up more options. Also, me taking Burgundy right off the start, as opposed to bouncing there, it didn't put Germany in that bad a position, so I didn't feel like I was burning that bridge. I was just kind of putting a bit of tension on that bridge.
Did you tell Germany that you were going to support yourself in?
No.
Did you ask for a bounce?
Yeah, we arranged a bounce. We had a bounce arranged already. So Munich, I knew that Munich was staying still. Like I knew that I wasn't going to have Munich exposed or anything like that. So I basically sold it to him as like, I just kind of wanted a better shot at Belgium. And I said that like, I didn't know if England was moving to the channel, but if he did move to the channel, then I have to move Brest out of position to counter that. So it was just easier for me to move to Burgundy. So I was able to kind of massage it a bit.
Was he? So he wasn't mad about it afterward?
Well, he wasn't happy, but no, he wasn't furious.
Okay.
And Germany, I wasn't going to mention it, but some of the other guys he just had on mentioned it. That Germany and Austria were like in the same building, and we could hear their audio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think after we kind of clued in on that, it was put a bit of attention on things, so it's kind of more of a reason to get rid of one of them. So yeah, Doc and I, we worked smoothly. There was never a hiccup, like never a point at which it made sense for me to switch. If you go to like the next year, Russia had some really weird army movements this game. Like he had one army that just transited up and down, and like it never really did anything, and it was weird. So that army tempted Germany to build a fleet Berlin.
This got a lot of attention on the live stream commentary. I mean, obviously it was interesting to see Holland getting bounced here and you being allowed into Belgium. So that was interesting. It was clear that England was choosing you, right? Mm-hmm. That England wanted an EF here, and then your army build. I mean, the fleet build in Brest was interesting. Was this negotiated?
Everything was negotiated. He was super chill about like letting me. There was this time, then another time around maybe 1904, 1905 that I was kind of debate. I needed another fleet, and I didn't know whether Marseille or Brest, and he just said Brest was fine. And so he built London, I built Brest, and it balanced out basically.
Interesting, right? I mean, it's a very confident approach by both of you, right? Like you're forming this really strong, really tight alliance, and also being comfortable with some defensive actions that will slow down your tempo a bit. Didn't affect you guys because the East stayed so messy for so long, but it's a well coordinated EF. I really compliment you guys.
So with the Berlin build right there, I looked at that and I said, okay, so Germany can't really defend me, and he isn't really putting resources into defending against me. So that is like a possible option for me to use him against England, both because I can be a bully on land and because he has the fleets to take action in Scandinavia. So like that, I had that on the table, but it just never worked out. That made more sense.
So but that's interesting. You were actively thinking here about whether you should be stabbing England, whether you should
100%. Yeah. Okay. So like either this season or like within 1902 to 1903, I was really looking hard at that, and I straightforward like told England my logic that I was debating because so Italy was doing this thing.
You were debating turning on it?
Yeah. No, I was really blunt about it. So Italy is doing this thing, over in the East, and I was like watching how that would turn out because I knew that like Germany was collapsing really quickly. That wasn't going to last long. So I was thinking about what's next. And if this was going all the way, then like timeline wise, if it wasn't going to be cut at 1907, then I want to kill England because I don't want to let England blob out to the point where like he has SDP to NAO. Like you can't do anything then at that point. He's staying there. Mm. So if it was going all the way to a solo, then I would have had to figure out a way to deal with England around this point. But it wasn't. And so from around this stage, like I was making decisions based on topping the board in 1907. I knew that it wasn't going to go to a solo.
Interesting. Were you thinking about how to top the board? Was topping the board important to you?
Yeah, that's the only goal that there. Well, okay, so obviously surviving, that's paramount. But from the way that this game opened up, it wasn't an issue about surviving. It was just board top.
Okay, so great. Since there was no scoring system, it wasn't clear whether there was consensus on what the secondary goals were if you couldn't solo. But in your mind, there was no question. It was, I want to top this board.
Well, yeah, the more units you have, the more options you have. It's kind of, yeah.
All right, let's move ahead here. Let's see what the next really interesting point was. So the EF is going, you're moving into the Med. You get down into Tuscany, which is awesome, right, as France. And then this turn happens. Did you know that Austria was going to follow up into Venice?
Yeah, sort of. So this basically at this point, Saren hit me up and she was like, "Hey, I'm fairly new. I want to survive. That's my goal." And so when she said that, basically she was kind of offering to Janissary herself for me. And I said pretty much
at this point right here.
Yes, at this point it was early.
Okay.
This is what I mean by like it wasn't a very cutthroat game. Like Germany kind of gave up pretty early. Like Italy and Turkey were talking about how kind of Germany was very involved in their discussions. That's kind of because he dropped out of England in my discussions. Like he just didn't really put effort into trying to change our approaches, anything like that. And so there was kind of a lot of early concessions to accept kind of a subpar result. So yeah, from this point, Saren was basically saying that she's willing to make a deal with me. I obviously kind of had her in a rough spot, and she wasn't. The East at this point didn't resolve itself and go, okay, we need to rejig everything. We need to basically get Turkey and Italy not fighting. We need to just change the whole thing. So she was still kind of committed to the attack on Turkey, and she was still kind of committed to Austria as an ally. And so she was kind of left without a clear direction. Okay. And so basically she just had too many fronts to defend. And so from there she went, okay, basically, don't hurt me pretty much and I'll help you out. So looking at this, the fleets in the East are pretty useless because Turkey has it really well hemmed in. Like those aren't going anywhere. So the only thing that I could think of that could be useful was for the Venice army to go play around in the middle of the board. Maybe help me into Munich, maybe getting into Italy.
You're talking later than this, right? Or you?
No, like right around here.
Because she covers Rome here. She doesn't go to Tyrannia.
Right. So the agreement was that she goes to Tyrolia.
Okay.
And Tuscany holds. And obviously, Tuscany holding, and then I still push into Tyrrhenian Sea. I didn't tell her that, but I was pushing into Tyrrhenian Sea. So I was still keeping, quite an assertive position there.
Okay.
But,
so she didn't believe you. She thought you were going to take a swing at Rome here.
It's hard to say exactly what changed that because Austria at this point. So I think Austria worked this out with both me and worked it out with her that she was going to Venice. She gave us different reasons though. For me, she was like, okay, I'm going to help you attack Italy. I need some dots right now. And for Italy, she basically said that, you cover Rome, I cover Venice sort of thing. But I wasn't going anywhere. So Austria just kind of knocked Italy down a dot in a way that wasn't helpful. So.
Well, I mean, it was fascinating. We talked about this a bit on the live stream. This looked to me a lot like an oops.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you by covering Venice, but oops, I got in. Sorry.
It was kind of like that with more diplomatic layers because they had all the information to know between them. They had all the information to know that it wasn't going to happen, but it was kind of an oops and kind of like, oh, I made the wrong call. So
yeah. Okay, let's jump ahead because some really interesting stuff happens. You take Holland here.
Yes. Okay. So if you back up one more season.
Okay.
So at this point, literally every player except for England got me in one voice chat. It was like a 6-person voice chat. Oh. And they all said, hey, we're not moving. We're all working together. Turkey, is this the season that, this is the season that Turkey took Serbia. This is like the first season that Turkey has gotten any gain since the start of the game. Yeah. And he was talking about walking out of Serbia just in order to put up this stalemate line. Yeah, so at this point, the entire rest of the board unified. And I was going...
Or claimed they were.
No. Like they were. They spent that entire year all in one voice chat. Like there wasn't separate groups. There was no plan B. Like they were all unified. It was insane. I haven't
even Germany.
Yeah. Because Germany, like I said, he wasn't talking about our side of the board. He was just dealing with them. So everyone else except for England. So
and it was all BS from the fall moves.
At the moment of it was true. But so based on how it was at that point,
They meant it when they said it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I'm looking at this thing and it's like it's stalemated. Like if they coalesce right now.
Wait, so you're trying to tell me this was a stab? You're taking Holland here was a stab.
They told me that I need to switch directions. Otherwise, nothing's happening. Otherwise, they're just gonna kick me out of my Italian gains that I've taken there. And I was like, oh, but can I take Rome? They're like, can I keep Rome? And they're like, no, you can't keep Rome. So yeah, they were basically saying like nothing happens until you and England fight. And so this wasn't a real stab because Kiel was open, and I didn't really commit. I was kind of, trying to get one of them offside.
Got it. Did you tell Doc that you were taking Holland here?
I did. It was like right at the last moment, so I don't even know if he really had time to change his orders. But I kind of told him, I need to look like I'm stabbing you. I'm not actually going to stab you. I'm not going to really follow this through. But I need you to not bounce Holland. And he was cool with that. He said, okay. I think he kind of understood what was happening. What really went wrong there is that this build season, he missed the timeline.
Yeah, he didn't build anything.
Right. So that was that.
So what are you thinking here?
So now I'm thinking that I've made a fake stab that has now led to a real stab opportunity, and I'm trying to weigh how fast I can get there versus how fast the East is going to change its mind, and it's hard to say. So from this point kind of until the end of the game, I'm kind of getting offers from everyone, and they all are kind of equally credible.
So it looks like you kind of try to do both here. We think you made some tactical mistake here by not moving Burr to Ruhr here. It's guaranteed to get in. We thought you did a really nice job of keeping him out of Kiel. So if there was the goal of, keeping him from moving forward, but Burgundy really should have gone to Ruhr here, and Paris probably.
So this was England and I were working with each other the entire game, So like we never actually broke the alliance. So in this case, he told me that Berlin was moving to Prussia and that he was covering Kiel without support. So I was hedging my bets on whether he would actually do that or not. So I didn't think that Munich was going to bounce. I thought that Munich was going to get in.
I see.
So we weren't really at war here. If we were, then I would have done something.
Well, if you had gotten into Berlin, then I think you would have been at war, right?
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Okay.
Independent. Yeah.
Okay. So you had a lot of
kind of in flux.
All right. I get it. If you have a lot of confidence that Munich's going to get into Berlin here, then it would be better to get, but I still think that you probably want to hedge your bets. I don't think you lose anything by going to Ruhr in that case.
That's possibly true. I was also trying to keep my options open to swing into Bohemia and Tyrolia, depending on at what point the East flipped and depending on what point their solidity broke down. So yeah, this was probably one of the examples where the deadline did hurt me, because I was kind of received many offers that contradicted each other as the deadline was approaching, and I had to.
That's, face-to-face forces difficult decisions.
Yeah,
I mean, look, if you think you're going to get in Berlin, if you have a lot of confidence, then going to Munich is better, because then you can support hold. You don't have to worry about being booted out. But if you want a full-fledged assault on England, then you'd rather be in Ruhr here, and then you could have supported yourself back to Kiel. There's lots of stuff here. Anyway, tell us about this turn, because this is a turn where it looked to us like Doc Bender had outmaneuvered you diplomatically, gotten you to move all of your units away from him while pushing his units towards you. Was this a diplomatic stab on his part, or was giving him Holland arranged?
Okay, I don't remember exactly at this point what was arranged and what was not arranged. There was no stabs here. There was no stabs like the entire game. So there was just kind of an uncertainty of the level of tension. Like, I knew that he obviously wasn't satisfied with how that went. I had explained to him at every step, we can't go anywhere until something happens to either Russia needs to do something different or Turkey needs to do something different for us to be able to make progress. So like, I was keeping him in the loop. At this point, obviously I knew that he wasn't happy with my moves, because he would be. And I just wasn't sure how much he would keep pressure on Russia versus how much he would swing toward me. Holland, I don't recall whether that was arranged, or either way, it wasn't a problem. Like, I took Holland from him the previous year, and I didn't really mean to take Holland. It kind of had to happen. So in my mind, that was still his dot. I didn't want to have multiple dots adjacent to the North Sea, because that tempts him too much, and it forces me to put too much pressure over a line that should be DMZ'd so we can have military elsewhere. So I didn't consider Holland my dot. I don't,
even though it forced a disband and caused him to go up 10-8 here.
Yeah, it was. I think I forgot that would make me disband, but either way, him and I were good. Like, it didn't make sense for either of us to really fight each other. And I think at this point, the East had stopped showing so much solidarity that I thought that there was like an opportunity to kind of swing backward. So I never really committed to going north, and he'd never really committed to going south.
So Okay, so then Doc puts down the Army Liverpool, which had to make you feel better about it. You pull Marseille, which gives you some defensive capability. But then you guys both, you stick to the EF, and to us, this looked like a diplomatic. If the previous turn looked like a diplomatic coup on Doc Binder's part, this looked to us like a diplomatic coup on your part. You got him. If he could have followed up with an attack on you, and I think it actually would have been quite successful. I think he would have ended up with about the same number of dots, but you would not have ended up with 13.
Quite possibly.
But you end this year, you pick up you get 2 builds coming out of Rome and Naples. You end up in the Eastern Mediterranean, Ionian, and Galicia with armies in Bohemia and Munich behind. I mean, this is just a phenomenal position for France to be in. Like, if you're going to evaluate solo opportunities, you have clearly the best one on the board at this point. So that was just really, really cool. And then so 1906, I'm sorry. So that was 1906. So the 1907 is going to be the last year. It's going to be the last year. So you're not playing to maximize your solo chances. I presume you would have played this differently had you been.
Absolutely. From like 1902, it would have been different. Yeah.
So now at this point, you and Doc are just trying to arrange a split board top as big as you can, or were you thinking about angling to try to get one over on him and steal a dot at the end?
So I wasn't trying to take one off of him because, so in the previous year, in 1906, Austria started working with us really closely. So it became EAF, and like Warsaw, for example, Warsaw, Armenia, Sevastopol, kind of all of that was worked out with Austria. There was tension between Austria and Italy. They each kind of wanted to mess up the other one. And I lied to Italy a few times. It wasn't really an intentional lie. It was like multiple offers from both Austria and Italy about each giving me parts of the boot and me helping the other one to get other parts of the boot. So, for example, like the convoy, when I convoyed into Albania.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So that season, I promised Italy that I'd be supporting Rome to Venice, but that didn't help me in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it helped me to get Naples out of there. So I did that.
And then you took Rome.
And then I took Naples after. So there was kind of a lot of sort of hedged bets at this point, and I was hesitant to go into this season. I did it. Tyrolia, Bohemia, the whole line moving toward Austria. I was kind of they were all trying to make deals with me, and I was kind of trying to stay friends with each one enough that I could get kind of the best deal. This season, for example, I noticed earlier on the stream, you guys were talking about how I moved out of the Eastern Med instead of pressing forward toward Turkey. Yeah, I had a lot of tough decisions about that. I was really going back and forth because if I was working with Austria here, then the unit in Armenia could help me into Smyrna, maybe even Greece, depending on what gets cut.
Oh yeah.
But, kind of the entire East wanted to work with me. So if I wanted to focus on Austrian dots, which were closer, then I should just kind of go all in on the Austrian dots, which is what ended up happening. So that was very much in flux.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so you and Doc are trying to outrace each other. You've sort of made an agreement you're not going to take each other's dots, I guess, although he takes Belgium here at the end. Was that arranged?
No, that wasn't arranged. And this wasn't really diplomatically agreed upon directly. It was kind of just like the obvious natural state of things that we were each trying to race, each trying to pick up dots. Okay. We'd had a DMZ running for quite a while, like the NAO, MAO thing right there. It wasn't expedient for us to try to go for each other's dots. Here, I knew that I could have defended Belgium ineffectively. There was a possibility that he would make a supported attack on Munich, given that I had stabbed Austria the turn before, so I supported that instead of trying for Belgium. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So you guys were racing each other. There was not an agreement to arrange a 13-13 split.
No, and we didn't know that any of that. He didn't know that any of these moves were happening.
Okay. Got it.
I don't know what he suspected, but he didn't know any. This was all. I spent this entire season, all of fall 1907, only in a voice chat with all of the East, and kind of we were just working out the tactics on this all the way through. So they, yeah.
This is pretty cool, right? Like you get support from Italy into Trieste. You're not working against Turkey, but Turkey's also not really doing much to stop you.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a nice. You got help from both Austria and Italy at the end, and you managed to work, through going back and forth to get up to 13 and split the board top with Doc Bender. No, this is a really impressive result, man. But you said at the beginning of this that you've been playing Diplomacy since 2011, and you certainly played and are analyzing the game like an experienced player.
Thank you. Yeah, this result, I don't think I get much of the credit. It's just kind of how it turned out that no one had any reason to go against me. So,
no, you get a lot of credit for that. Yeah, no, nobody lucks into a 13-13 board top, especially with playing next to a world-class player. And it's not like you were doing what he told you. You were playing your own game, and you were actively looking at whether he was a useful ally or not, and that's perfect. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't decide that he wasn't a useful ally, just because it would have created some interesting and fun fireworks. But your goal is not necessarily to entertain me.
No.
Maximize your result. So no, I think this is a great game. You showed a lot of really great instincts. Like I said, I think this turn, this year, as exemplified by this turn, so 1906 is just spectacular play. Like, this is just really skilled. This is evidence of really skillful diplomacy, keeping England on side when England really honestly ought to have followed up his attack on you. He really should have followed up and taken Belgium, taken Mid-Atlantic. He would have been able to secure at least these 3 dots, if not something in Iberia. But you convinced him not to, and that's fantastic. And then on top of that, you convinced all of the powers in the East to work with you, which is great. That's just really fantastic. Up until the very end, like, you don't secure the split board top without Italy's help here.
No.
And
yeah.
This is an Italy whose game you are most responsible for harming. So
Yeah.
to get your opponents, the ones that you have that you've attacked, to help you is the mark of an expert diplomat. So well done.
They all had something against Austria at this point. Austria thought that Russia was the reason that the East never got together. Everyone else thought that Austria was the reason no one had got together. And so opportunities presented themselves.
Yeah, but you get credit for, probably fostering that sort of dissension, but especially for seeing it, recognizing it, and taking advantage of it. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Congrats on that. So this is your first real face-to-face game, is that right?
No, not quite. Yeah, no, I've played high school, uni, just with friends.
Yeah, but your first face-to-face game against like people who play regularly, is that
most
true?
of them didn't play regularly.
Yeah. Well, you absolutely should come and play in some of the tournaments that we have going, and play against players who really know what they're doing.
Okay.
You clearly fit in with them, and it'd be great to see you going against a board full of top competition.
Yeah, I've watched some of your podcasts, and yeah.
Oh, fantastic! So we have another tournament coming up. It's called the Liberty Cup. That's run out of Philadelphia, though obviously it's online, so that doesn't really matter. And that's August 1st. Okay. There's some league activity before then. So the Windy City Weasels, the club that I help run, is we're going to have a league game next week. Not sure if it's open to players from all over, but at least worth watching. We're going to have our championship game. Our league championship game comes up at the end of the month. And then we have a tournament in August as well. So, but I think, some other club, I think the Washington Club or the Minnesota Club, they're going to run a game that's open to anyone who wants to play.
All right, awesome.
So keep an eye out for that. Borge, it's been great talking to you, man.
Thanks, man.
Pleasure being on here. And look forward to seeing you on a future table.
All right, thanks.
All right, that does it for our coverage of the Nexus virtual face-to-face games for June. We hope you've enjoyed watching as much as we have enjoyed calling the games and analyzing them and talking to the players. And we will see you again on a future broadcast.